Lacey Fletcher could probably hear them packing for their New Year's trip. They're going to celebrate ringing in 2022 by going out of town and leaving Lacey to rot by herself. It's hard to say if Lacey felt relief in that moment knowing that they're going to be gone, or if she felt fear, because what if they don't leave her food? Would she just starve to death? What if they didn't leave her water? You can go longer without food but not water, right? Just a few days. What if they don't even come back? What would happen to her then? All she could really do in that moment is sit in that chair and watch them leave. I mean, what other choice does she have? She's trapped, unable to leave her prison, unable to see the sun. Lacey can't walk outside. She can't talk to her friends anymore, go to school. She's not even able to walk into the kitchen to grab food whenever her stomach rumbles. We don't know if she even knew what day it was, or if she could hear the New Year's Eve fireworks. Would she work it out from the fireworks that it's 2022 now? Or would the loud noises just terrify her? We don't know any of this for certain. We just know that Lacey Fletcher was a prisoner of the couch. She had been left there, hungry, covered in feces, naked, unable to eat unless one of them decided to bring her food. Her body was dying while she was still alive. There were parts of her flesh that were rotting. There were maggots crawling in and out of her hair, in and out of her bones, munching down at her dead flesh, and she's still alive. If she looked down, there would have been certain parts of her body where she could see straight through her skin, her tissue, her muscle, and see her bones. There were giant holes all over the lower half of her body. She was completely covered in feces. There was feces in her stomach, inside her stomach, in her mouth, and even her ears. She had been trapped on this couch for the past 12 years of her life. By the time that she was found, she had melted through the couch into a hole, and her skin was fusing with the brown leather. The only contents found in her stomach would be sofa cushion foam and feces. Did she eat it out of desperation? Was she fed it? We don't know. The worst part is, we're still unclear why any of this happened. There are theories that range from locked-in syndrome, where someone is fully conscious but unable to move their bodies, trapped inside their own minds. There are theories of full-blown torture, with Lacey being a victim for someone's sick, sadistic pleasure for over a decade. There are a lot of wild theories, but we have no definitive answers. All we know is Lacey Fletcher would die in one of the worst, slow, torturous deaths imaginable, and nobody helped her. One of our wonderful researchers that worked on this case is autistic, and she was instrumental in the process of gathering data for this case. She's also provided us with links to autism resource pages that will be in the show notes. Now, with that being said, as with all cases, please let us know if you have any thoughts or any additional details about the case down in the comments. And with that, let's get started. There's a very rare condition out there. It's called locked-in syndrome. Less than 1,000 people in the United States have it at any given point. Most sufferers are victims of a stroke or a traumatic brain injury. And even though it's a very, very rare condition, it seems to be a big fear for a ton of people. I mean, maybe it's the nature of the condition. Maybe it's because of the natural human fear of not being able to communicate with one another. It's terrifying. And it's exactly how you picture it. Locked-in syndrome. You're awake. Your mind is flowing. It's going a million miles an hour. If you're lucky, you can open your eyes and look around. See what's around you. But really only as much as you can move your pupils. That's it. When you try to talk, nothing moves. You can't push out the words. It's like when you're in a dream and you're trying to scream for help, but no words come out and you start getting so flustered and frustrated with yourself, but you wake up and you realize that's just a nightmare. This is locked-in syndrome. You can't even move a single finger. You can't even swallow your own saliva. And soon drool is going to be seeping out of your mouth while doctors and loved ones look at you concerned, worried, because they don't know how this happened. You're trying to give them a sign of, hey, I can see you, I can hear you, I'm here. But there's nothing that you can move. Your body is locked, and you are locked in your brain. 90% of people die within the first 4 months that they're locked in. And a lot of doctors can figure out that they're locked in, but can't find a way to get them out. One survivor of locked-in syndrome stated, My cognitive capabilities were 100%. I could think and hear and listen to people, but I couldn't speak or move. The doctors would just stand there at the foot of my hospital bed and talk like I'm not in the room. And I just wanted to scream like, hey, people, I'm still here. But there was no way for me to let them know. He remembered hearing the doctors tell his family in the room that he had a 2% chance of survival. And even if he did survive, he would be completely comatose. He remembers hearing the conversation and seeing his wife break down and beg the doctors to not turn off his life support machines. And he was just screaming, no, I'm right here. Don't turn it off. I'm right here. But nobody could hear him. He couldn't move his lips. He couldn't move his mouth. Another survivor said, I could do nothing except listen, and I could only see the direct area in front of me based on how the nurses would position me in bed. So if they flipped me over to the left, I could only see that point of the room. He reported that he could feel every jolt and twinge of pain. He could even feel itchiness. You know, you have that itch in your back? He said it was miserable. He's in constant pain, but he's completely at the mercy of his doctors for pain meds. And this is a miserable way to live, but there's no choice. You don't have the choice of exiting your life or telling someone, hey, I can't do this. He said, I couldn't tell anyone if my mouth was dry, if I was hungry, if I had an itch that needed to be scratched. I felt disgusting all the time. I was constantly drenched in sweat. My skin was so sensitive to minor sensory changes, it felt like it was burning all the time. It felt like it was on fire. He was in constant pain. He was afraid of dying, and that's all he could think about all day. But worse than that, he was afraid of being trapped inside of his body forever. All he could do was talk to himself. He said he had to create another voice to talk to himself. 2 voices. He could calm himself down. He would say things like, how are you doing, Jake? Not too bad, just waiting on my meds. It's coming soon. Don't freak out, Jake. You're gonna be okay. When Jake wasn't talking to himself, he was talking to the nurses. They just didn't know it. They would ask him, hey, Jake, can you hear us? And he would be screaming at the top of his lungs, I can hear you. I'm right here. But nobody could hear him. And the highlights of his day was when nurses would come in and talk to him, even though they had no clue that he was, quote, in there. The ones who sang to him were his favorite. While they would flip him over, they would sing to him. But most of the days, he would just lay there in a completely empty room, unable to move. Sometimes his family and loved ones would come over into the hospital room and they would just scream at each other about what they were going to do with him, fighting about him as if he's not right there listening to all of this.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
And there's no way of these people, there's no medical equipment that can detect that.
I think right now, eye fluttering is the quickest way that doctors will detect it. It still takes about a few days for them to even find out that you're locked in. Yeah, so most of these people, these survivors, they said it took multiple days for the doctors to be like, oh my gosh, I think he's blinking. Like, please blink twice if you can understand what I'm saying right now. Wow. I mean, I can only imagine there must be so many who couldn't control their eye movements either. So we don't know just how many of people have passed while they've been locked in. We're not sure. And once they're locked in, they remember everything. These survivors, they remember everything in detail and they were corroborating it with the nurses and doctors. So it's not just like hallucinations that they had. These are real events. They're completely conscious. There is a device right now, I think, that they're working on where it can try to communicate with you through your brain.
See,
Listen,
that's what I was thinking. Like,
yeah.
There's so many like brain scans. They can check like what area is moving and stuff.
I imagine it's very expensive.
Right.
There was a man in France who wrote a whole book just by blinking one eye to someone who was transcribing it. And then he passed almost immediately after it was published. Jake said other times he was so bored, he would just count to 1,000 and then start all over again. 1 to 1,000. It was absolute hell. He felt like he was being tortured. He always wanted to know, what time is it? What day is it? How long has it been? But he can't even ask anyone. And then there's just so many depressing thoughts in his mind. There were days where all he thought about the entire day was his own funeral. Who's going to show up? What it's going to look like? Who's going to say what? For Marsh, the other survivor, he said he was really lucky. His wife and children were there all day, but even that was just lonely. He said, during the day, I was lucky. I never spent a single day when my wife and one of my kids wasn't there. But once they left, it's lonely, not in the way of missing people, but loneliness of knowing there's no one who really understands how to even communicate with you. Marsh and Jake were 2 of the lucky ones. There were rumors last year in 2020 that a young woman in Louisiana was not as lucky, that she had been locked in her own brain for the past 12 years, and all she could do was sit on the couch and stare at the wall until she passed. So in 2022, this story goes crazy. It's a horrifying story that's coming out, but it was made even more terrifying by the fact that that woman probably didn't even have locked-in syndrome. So what does that mean? Why would someone sit there on the couch for 12 years? She's able-bodied. Why didn't she get up?
Oh, so she's not chained?
No.
Or trapped?
We don't know. So that means if she's not locked in, there is something worse, more sinister, that made her unable to move from the couch for the past 12 years of her life. Slaughter, Louisiana has a population of less than 1,000 people, but it does have a very interesting name. They were briefly part of a small internet discourse because of their unfortunate police department name, the Slaughter Police. Yeah, so not great from a marketing standpoint. And there was this question of, why the hell is there a town named Slaughter anyway? There were some rumors that the area had some of the first slaughterhouses in Louisiana, or that something very ominous happened there, giving it the name Slaughter, Louisiana. But it's actually just named after the original owners of the land, Mr. Will and Joe Slaughter. But it's a very, very, very small town, less than 1,000 people, about 800 people. And it's the type of place where you don't have to leave the town for anything. There are schools, 2 churches, pharmacy, food marts, small businesses that sell farming goods, a rehab facility, short and long-term care for the elderly. And even though it's the definition of rural, the houses are super spread out so you can have as much privacy as your heart desires. Slaughter has that small town comfort where you're like, okay, my dog is missing. Guess what? Likely all 800 residents are going to come out and help you search for your dog until they're back home. It's just one of those towns. I mean, they even have like a small government with residents voted in as what they call aldermen. And these aldermen will help vote on issues affecting the community. So the aldermen, they're supposed to be approachable figures of community that you can turn to for literally anything. Like if you have a disabled family member and you think there needs to be better accessibility at some part of the town, you go to the alderman. If you think your job that has nothing to do with the government requires better sexual harassment policies, like you work at a fast food chain, you're like, you go to the alderman. Even if you have a deeply personal issue where maybe you have an anxious relative who won't leave the house and is becoming reclusive and is not socializing with anyone, you go to the alderman. They literally went to the alderman for anything. Sheila was probably the best alderman to go to. She was also the vice mayor of the town, literally was voted into that position. So if the mayor couldn't attend a meeting, Sheila would show up in place of the mayor. Her husband, Clay, was also well known in the community. He worked for a nonprofit called the Baton Rouge Civil War Roundtable. They would organize events and field trips to historic sites to, quote, provide nonpartisan atmosphere to foster learning and respect for our Civil War heritage. It's a lot. You know, there's a lot of red flags, and some of the members joining the official Facebook group would post, quote, non-judgmental pictures of the KKK and make racist jokes about the Obamas. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like Clay was the one personally posting those or endorsing that kind of activity, but just to give you preface. Now, Clay and Sheila, they're the go-tos for the community. Anyone's got a problem, you go to Clay or you go to Sheila. They're churchgoers. They've got the mindset of wanting to help others. They would probably help you first with your oxygen mask on a plane before putting their own on. Always asking, how's your day? How's your sick grandma? Well, if your grandma needs anything, just give us a ring. We're right down the street. But who asks how Sheila and Clay are? Robert Blades Sr. asked. He lives across the street from them, and he remembered the couple having a young daughter, and he hadn't seen her in God knows how long, right? Over a decade for sure, maybe like 15 years ago. Last he saw of her, she was exercising down the street, running around with some dumbbells in her arms. I mean, she did that a lot, and then she stopped one day. He just kind of assumed, like all the other kids in the neighborhood, though, she got into college, moved into the city, met a boy, got married, started a new life, and then never found the time to visit small old town Slaughter ever again, right? Or maybe she did, and he always missed her.
I don't know, she just looked like a young woman. She was, she had these little, what do you call the little weights that you hold in your hand? The little dumbbells?
She was exercising?
Yes, she'd walk from her house around the circle, and she used to do that, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a week.
So one day, this daughter would have been about 30 years old at this point. Robert was on his front lawn talking to Clay about, things going on in the neighborhood. And he thought to ask, oh yeah, Clay, how's Lacey? How's she doing? What's she up to now? Moved away? Oh, no. She's still here. She still lives here. She's fine. Clay quickly changed the subject. At that moment, it was very likely that Lacey was unable to walk, fused to the couch, trapped. And death has a smell. When the body starts to break down and decompose, there are over 800 chemicals that react with the air and with each other, and it creates a very distinct scent. And we always hear about it in cases. The investigators could smell death, that it's the scent that once you smell it, you can never forget it. And to a degree, I feel like we can all kind of imagine what it's like. I'm sure it's not a pleasant scent, but people actually say it's more than that. It's really distinct. It's not just the worst scent that you've ever experienced. There's so much more to it. Death has a sickly sweet scent. So underneath the smell of fecal matter, waste, decay, like you would imagine a piece of raw steak left outside in hot, humid cabin air would smell like after 3 months in the summer. It's like that, but underneath it, there are almost these sweet notes. Everyone describes it differently. I went down a lot of forums with a lot of coroners and crime scene investigators, crime scene cleanup crews. Some describe it as a thick, it's almost like it hangs in the air, like this thick honey scent underlying this rotten meat, garlicky fecal matter scent. It's like honey, but you want to throw up. Others say no, it's almost a little floral. Like, you know, when you are around flowers that have a very unique scent and you almost want to gag? Kind of like that. Some say, actually, it's that almondiness. It's that sweet, almost kind of nuttiness. And then there's that overpowering, fishy, even sour scent that overtakes it all. One Redditor, an EMT, describes it as, smells like if you left cheese out in the hot sun for a week and then you put it into a stale sweet tea, iced tea mix. And then you just let it sit in that mix, hot, iced sweet tea mix for another week. And then you smell it. It's actually even thought that humans and other animals evolved disgust for the scent. So the main underlying scent is called putrescine, and it's a chemical compound associated with decomposing bodies. And apparently humans evolved into being so literally primitively disgusted by it because it protects us from disease and predation from scavengers. Studies go even further to suggest that it triggers a fight or flight response in humans. Just the smell of a dead body, even if you don't know it's the smell of a dead body, you smell it way out in the woods, you have a fight or flight response. That's what some people believe. And there is a company out there that just recreates the scent of human death. That's their whole business model. The scent of human remains, and they sell a formulated version of it. And to put it simply, they bottle up the scent of human death and sell it. The website describes it as, quote, represents odor of 2 140-pound cadavers for the low cost of $850. And it's not for any weird, sinister reason. Well, hopefully that's not why most people are buying it. It's mainly used by cadaver dog trainers so that they don't have to use real human remains to train cadaver dogs to find dead bodies. But there's actually a lot of cadaver dog trainers that don't like to use these scents. They'd rather go to a body farm and purchase body parts because they argue it's just not the same. Like, you try to replicate it with the chemicals that is created from decomposing bodies, but it's so difficult to replicate the smell of death precisely. It is such a unique scent. I mean, there's so many varying factors. The scent depends on the person that died, the surrounding conditions. Is there wildlife where the body is, the temperature, the humidity? They said humidity is the worst on a dead body. And Slaughter, Louisiana was a humid, hot town. I'm not sure how much Dr. Brickham knew when he drove up to the little White House on January 3rd, 2022. I wonder if the neighbor's Christmas trees and all the New Year's decorations were still up, making the drive feel, I don't know, even more eerie, right? But once he parked that car, he gets out, he walks past the well-manicured green lawn, he opens up the front door, and it's like he's hit with this invisible force field. It's a smell. He couldn't breathe, he said. He said there was a stench, an odor, feces, fecal matter, urine. You couldn't hold your breath. Dr. Brickham had smelled death before, but this smell, it's literally embedded into the fabric of the house. That's how thick and pungent it is. It felt like the scent was going to follow him home and linger for weeks. Dr. Brickham enters the living room, and you know when you spot something that just feels out of place, it makes you feel very unsettled. Like, you can't quite put your finger on it, but it just feels weird. Imagine it's snowing outside and there's someone standing there out in the snow, staring at your house with nothing but their swimwear on. And you're just looking out the window like, I feel like this is odd. Like, yes, I'm worried that they're going to get sick, but there feels like there needs to be a sinister explanation for this because it's just that out of place. Dr. Bickham walks into the living room. Most of the living room is pretty tidy, a little clutter like any normal house, but all over it was pretty well organized. I mean, it's pretty evident that someone in this house is maintaining the living areas, making sure that they're always well kept, cleaning up, organizing everything except the couch in the center of the living room. The dark brown leather couch was the source of the smell, and Dr. Bickham had been hit with it when he walked into that house, and he could almost see steam like emanating from it. The couch looked like it was melting. The couch was soaked with urine and feces, human excrement. The waste was seeping through the couch bottom onto the floor where it looked like any second nobody cleaned the floor underneath the couch. It looked like the floor was going to crumble in on itself from the gathering of all the liquid and feces. There was an 18-inch gap between the couch and the wall. The wall looked moist. Like, it looked like there would be condensation droplets on the wall from steam, from liquid. And the couch just looks so out of place. I mean, you wouldn't even expect to see this type of couch in an abandoned home. It looks like a regular, normal living room, and then they just have this couch that everyone in the family and visitors go and pee and poop on, and then nobody cleans it up. That's what it looks like, and it's just melting. It's like a weird time capsule. Just the couch is rotting. It's bizarre. And this is the living room of a couple that's pretty well respected in the community. In a house where the rest of the place is extremely well kept and there are signs of life, and this is the couch that's in the center of the living room. But as Dr. Bickham got closer, he found who he had come here for. Lacey Fletcher was laying in the living room couch. She's not laying on the couch, she's laying in the couch. There is a huge person-sized hole in the leather couch, almost to the floor. I would imagine it, and there are pictures. Just imagine your dog gnawed through all of the sofa cushion fluff, and there's just a hole in the couch. She's literally in the couch. She's slumped to one side, sitting cross-legged. Her eyes are wide open. Her mouth is wide open. She's completely nude except a small blue patterned top that's pulled over her chest, so her chest is bare. What? Dr. Bickham could see her bones. Not because she was that emaciated, which she was very malnourished, but parts of her body had been rotten and eaten by maggots while she was alive. Just think of the mental trauma for someone who would be alert and aware if they were to look down and see their own flesh being eaten by maggots. There were maggots crawling in and around her hair, all over her body. She was covered head to toe in feces. It was found in her mouth, in her stomach, in her ears. She had been eating it, or she had been fed it. We don't know. The sofa arms were covered in scratches. This is not a situation where Lacey's body was left on the couch to decompose after her death, and the feces and urine, it came out during the decomposition process. This is not that situation. Lacey was kept alive on that couch for 12 years. She had been alive for 12 years, not able to get up to even use the restroom. She had been soiling herself and then either eating or being fed her own feces while being trapped on this couch for 12 years. Her flesh had been rotting while she was alive. Maggots were eating away at her while she was alive, and she had just recently passed away. And the two people who lived with her, her parents, the ones who walked past that couch every single day, walked past it to head into the kitchen, to the garage, to the backyard, Sheila and Clay Fletcher, they were now standing in the kitchen with no explanation on what the hell had happened.
When I first walked in the house, it smelled of feces, fecal material, however you want to put that politely. It stunk. When I got to the body, the individual was basically sitting in a hole filled with liquid stool and urine. I was able to place her body in a black body bag, and I took it down to Jefferson Parish for autopsy. It's the worst form of medical neglect I've ever seen. I mean, I don't know any other adjectives or adverbs to add to that.
Lacey was pronounced dead at 3:07 p.m. on January 3rd, 2022, but it's likely that she passed away at least 24 to 48 hours prior. she could have passed away New Year's Day 2022. The world around her would have been celebrating the start of a new year, something fresh, and Lacey would have been laying dying in her own excrement. Sheila Fletcher got a little bit more talkative at the police station. And side note, this isn't even immediately after authorities took Lacey's body away. Sheila was interviewed January 18th. Lacey's body was found January 3rd.
So the police didn't do anything until 18th.
They really did not treat the parents like persons of interest or even suspects.
So it's a small town, right? So they all know each other. And
Now, Sheila tells authorities January 18th that Lacey had social anxiety and had met with a psychologist over a period of 3 years when she was back a teenager. Lacey was 36 when she passed. So you're talking about like decades ago. Eventually, she stopped seeing her doctor decades ago. Sheila and Clay contemplated getting Lacey committed into a specialist medical facility, but for whatever reason, that never happened. In the interview with the police, Sheila insisted that Lacey refused to leave the couch. It was a personal choice that she made. So she and Clay, they did their best to accommodate her on her wishes. Like they set up a toilet for her, like one of those portable toilets that you see at hospitals. They put it right next to the couch with some baby wipes, baby powder, a fresh change of clothes, a stack of Lacey's favorite movies to watch. They were all there. All Lacey had to do was get up. But she didn't ever want to leave the couch, ever. That's what they said. Maybe it's laziness. So they gave Lacey a towel on the couch to use as a toilet. Sheila stated that she would have to take the towels from Lacey, the ones covered in feces, clean them, and then bring her new towels. I mean, it was a whole thing. Sheila also stated that she would have to clean Lacey's body and bed sores, and not once did Lacey ever complain about pain, which, I don't know, is just really unbelievable. And even if someone doesn't complain about pain, if you can see someone's bone, Sheila stated that Lacey had lost her appetite last autumn, so back in 2021. But when the Fletchers, because they went on a New Year's trip, when they got back from their trip from New Year's on January 2nd, the day before Lacey died, Sheila said that she made her half a sandwich and gave her a bag of Cheetos. She stated Lacey ate it. Then, according to Sheila, the mom, Sheila went to sleep on the chair on the living room next to Lacey's couch, near Lacey, near the rotting hole in the sofa. And at around 10 p.m. when Sheila fell asleep for the night, Lacey was still alive. When she woke up the next morning, Lacey was dead. That's what Sheila Fletcher said. But Sheila Fletcher is a liar, in my personal humble opinion. Sheila stated January 2nd, 2022, Lacey ate half a sandwich and a bag of Cheetos. This is not what would be found in Lacey's stomach during the autopsy. All they could find in her stomach was sofa foam and feces. No sandwich, no Cheetos. And if Lacey had been sitting there on that couch for 12 years, that means this hell would have begun around 2010, and she would have almost certainly been in pain since day one.
they said that she's been sitting there for 12 years.
They said that it's been years. They didn't give an exact estimate, but the coroner said about 12 years. Wow. Now, skin exposure to urine and feces is painful and can start stinging within hours. It happens more frequently with infants. It's actually called a diaper rash, and it can get very serious, if not even kill infants. And it's not even done purposely. Most of the times that babies have diaper rashes, it's not abuse. It's typically just because they're very sensitive. Now, the main symptoms are red rashes on the buttocks. If left unaddressed for too long, it can quickly escalate into a full body fever, full body chills, and a full body rash. Urine and feces contain ammonia. Now, ammonia is very corrosive. If your skin is in contact with ammonia for long periods of time, it can cause irritation and even burns. That could have happened within the first few hours of the first day that Lacey had soiled herself on that couch. Now, if a diaper rash is left untreated, the skin starts to swell. It can transform into these rashes that have these white bumps all over that ooze clear fluid, and then the skin starts to peel, causing these open sores. It's very painful, and if there's still urine or feces that's there to make contact with those open sores, you're at a dangerous risk of infections. Yeast infections might be one. Yeast dermatitis could be another thing. Those are dark red areas of the skin, usually filled with these raised yellow fluid-filled pustules. This is likely all happening near the private regions because she was found sitting cross-legged. So she's genuinely sitting in a pile of her urine and feces, which makes everything much more sensitive and painful because these are your private parts. Side note, if Lacey still had her menstrual cycle at the beginning of all of this, she may not have due to malnutrition or other reasons, but if she did, that means there would have also been blood rotting into the sofa, and blood attracts flies. Flies would have been attracted to Lacey and her wounds that were all primarily, again, in her down regions. Also, infections for the private regions are incredibly painful, and that is just the beginning. This is still when everything is treatable fairly easily. Painful, but not like life-threatening, typically. Even without urine and feces, the high risk of painful infections just sitting or laying in one place is horrendous for the body. Bed sores. Have you heard of bed sores? They're going to be one of the first things to show up. Bed sores occur when there is continuous pressure on parts of the body, usually by sitting or laying in a single position for an extended period of time. So you're cutting off blood supply to that specific area, which causes the surrounding tissue to start dying. Within 2 hours, the tissue starts dying. Humans are very sensitive because that tissue is not getting enough oxygen because blood has oxygen in it and you're not getting blood flowing there, and it can happen in 2 to 3 hours. So you're like, okay, well, why don't I get bed sores when I'm falling asleep? We're constantly moving. Even shuffling like this is moving. So if you're sitting on a chair for 8 hours studying, if you're moving a little bit, it's hard to get bed sores. This stops it from developing. But if you're unable to move around, a bed sore is going to happen because there's a lack of oxygen. Like, it's not preventable. The skin will die and the bed sore will just look like a red blotch on the skin. So it starts looking like a sunburn, and it feels a little hot to the touch, kind of like a sunburn, warm. It might even be a little itchy, very similar to a sunburn, but eventually it turns purple. And by that point, if left untreated, the skin will break open and you're just going to have this painful wound that becomes easily infected, and then it collapses on itself. It's like a crater-sized blister. Some bed sores, I saw pictures on Reddit. I honestly don't know. I should not have gone down that route. There's like dinner plate-sized bed sores, and you can see all the way to the bone. And it's not just skin deep. That's the problem. These bed sores collapse and they go deeper and deeper until you literally have Swiss cheese-like holes on your body. They reach into the muscle all the way to the bone. If you see a really bad picture of a bed sore, you can see muscle, tendons, bones, joints, just in a hole in someone's body. It's like an exposed tunnel for people to see inside of you. Once a bed sore develops, you have to treat it and dress it every single day, multiple times a day. It is absolutely horrendous for the patient and the caretaker. And bed sores are very, very, very slow to heal. With bed sores, genuinely, prevention is the only key. All you can do is move around. So that's why when you have bedbound patients, one of the first things that caretakers or nurses learn is you have to flip the patient every 2 hours. There's no question about it. And that's why when you go to nursing homes and maybe your grandparents have a bed sore, it's taken so seriously because when you hear the word bed sore, you're like, okay, it's not that big of a deal, but it's a very clear indicator that there could be abuse happening. Some really bad bed sores take days, months, even years to heal. Some may never heal. They may need surgery. And when it's super serious, bed sores can lead to death. Once they get infected, it leads to sepsis and death. Bed sores cause the death of more than 24,000 people each year. And again, the saddest part is most of the time, bed sores are completely preventable. I feel like it's very safe to assume that Lacey went through all of that and more. By the time that her body was found, the flesh on Lacey's bottom had been worn away and eaten. It was gone. Like, she had no thighs, no butt. Her back and butt area, it was impossible to tell what part was a human being. Her skin and flesh were so rotten and half eaten by maggots. There were other areas that maybe looked a little bit more like human skin, but it was completely yellow, which is typically a sign of infected skin. Lacey had bed sores that went all the way down to her bones. Her skin was rotting away from constantly sitting in a mess of feces and acidic urine. She had a severe case of gangrene, which is when your flesh is dead. So the tissue changes from red to black, and then you're left with dead tissue, which is very dangerous because, again, you're at risk of infection, which can kill you. The only tiny bit of relief in all of this is hopefully with her injuries being that deep into her skin, hopefully it destroyed her nerve endings. There's a chance that it might not have, but there is a chance that it did. So maybe she had lost feeling in some of these parts of her body around the injury sites. We don't know for sure, but we can only hope that she didn't feel what was slowly happening to her body for 12 long, agonizing, painful years. And it wasn't just the lower part of her body. Her entire backside was a mess of raw, rotten flesh. She was completely covered in raw red blotches, and Lacey's wounds were being cleaned. Not by her parents, but by maggots. Maggots were crawling in and out of her, consuming her dead flesh. And for this case, the maggots did more to help Lacey than her own parents. Like, I know usually we talk about maggots and it's not in a positive light, but maggots have a very important role in this world. So they eat dead flesh. In medical history, and sometimes even today, maggots have been used as a way of helping clean wounds. So maggots, they leave healthy flesh alone and just feed off of dead flesh, which needs to be cut away anyway because you're at risk of infection. And in Lacey's case, it seems to have worked to the point that she did not die of sepsis and infection for the first 12 years. The maggots kept her alive by eating the dead flesh on her wounds, while her parents did nothing for her, in my opinion. We know that Lacey was left with no real food or water in reach, and Lacey, on some level, was aware enough to know that she needed to eat. Her body seems to have grasped for anything that she could get, and the sofa foam was the only thing in reach. That and feces. Because that was what was found in her stomach. Not half of a sandwich or Cheetos. That's just the physical trauma of her body. We don't know to what extent and how bad the emotional and mental trauma was for 12 years. We don't know if this is even the full extent of her physical trauma. Technically, there could have been things that happened to her years ago that wouldn't be present during the autopsy now. Dr. Bickham's official report stated Lacey died of sepsis as a result of severe medical neglect, which led to chronic malnutrition, acute starvation. Lacey only weighed 96 pounds at 36 years old. Immobility, acute ulcer formation, bone infection, which ultimately led to sepsis and death. And one last thing about Lacey's autopsy. Sheila Fletcher stated she never took Lacey to the doctor because Lacey had never been sick. Which, let's not even unpack how ridiculous that statement is. We don't even need to go there. But that alone seems to be another lie, or at least a very misguided statement, because Lacey had COVID when she died. Most of Clay and Sheila Fletcher's friends did not even know that they had a daughter. But there were people that remembered Lacey, the ones who went to school with her in Slaughter, Louisiana, or the ones that saw her running around the neighborhood when she was younger. They all just assumed that she had grown up, moved out of Slaughter, maybe settled down nearby in Baton Rouge, got married. The ones that knew that the Fletchers had a daughter, they remembered Lacey as being a very friendly kid. She was fun to be around. She had a lot of different interests. She was, like a lot of people, obsessed with Disney. She loved anything Disney World, Disneyland, Disney movies, characters. That's her happy place. She would send friends links to videos of Disney. Also, Mariah Carey and country music. Very interesting mix. But she was someone that just had a very wide range of interests. She's very active. She loved bowling, volleyball. Those were her favorite activities. And everybody's favorite word to describe Lacey was just sweet, as sweet as can be. She never acted out. She didn't seem like she was creating trouble or, when you have younger kids, there can be certain things that they do or say, or maybe they're acting out that might indicate that something darker is happening within. Maybe it's happening at the house. There's just these little indications, right? Lacey didn't have any of that. She was a happy-go-lucky kid that liked to have fun. Now, side note, Lacey was diagnosed as autistic when she was younger. And just to give you a bit of context, autism is a neurological condition. It is not an illness and is a lot more common than people think. Around 1 in 36 children were diagnosed as autistic in 2023, and it generally affects the way that people communicate for a few reasons. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just a different way of communicating. Many autistic people report feeling their senses a bit more. So what seems like a quiet room for some people can actually be sensory overload for an autistic person. Some autistic people report having excellent memory for facts and very strong problem-solving logical minds, but they might struggle with social cues or small talk. Or some autistic people have reported finding it difficult to read facial expressions and eye contact. There has been a lot of stigma and prejudice attached to autism for a very long time, and I think there still is today. But I think being able to see the world in slightly different ways is a great thing. Different world perception is not necessarily better or worse. It's just different. And I think we need different perceptions. There's a common saying in the autistic community. If you've met one autistic person, then you've met one autistic person. Because it's not really something where you can generalize and say, oh, if you have autism, then you feel A, B, C, and D. It's such a wide spectrum that people can be very different from one another with very different needs and different ways of communicating. So keep that in mind. Because Lacey's parents would often tell people, yeah, Lacey's just super quiet and withdrawn and she doesn't like socializing. But her friends at school were so confused. They're like, are we talking about the same girl right now? Are we talking about the same Lacey? I mean, sure, I guess she's kind of quiet compared to like the class clown, but she would go out of her way to welcome people and try to build connections. I mean, she's very opinionated and very passionate about a lot of things. She loved new experiences and she loved a change in her routine. So I don't know what the parents are saying. To a lot of Lacey's childhood friends, it felt like her parents didn't even know who she was. And side note, her parents were allegedly wishy-washy with her diagnosis. Sometimes they would state that Lacey had Asperger's syndrome, which is no longer used as a diagnosis anymore, by the way. Sometimes they would describe her autism as, quote, mild. Other times they would describe it as, quote, severe, which, side note, from what I've been told, the better verbiage to describe autism is high or low support needs. But these are allegedly the verbiage that Lacey's parents used. So this is not me describing Lacey. Lacey's doctor, Dr. Bickham, the one that went to Lacey Fletcher's home to find her, was her primary care physician when she was younger.
Wow.
He was friendly with the Fletchers. Like, he knew the Fletchers. He was their doctor. He's also the town coroner. Small town. Yeah. Dr. Bickham would even describe her diagnosis as, quote, severe autism and social anxiety. But again, this just doesn't really match the way that Lacey's friends describe her, so it's confusing. And just to clarify, Lacey did have unique interests, but it doesn't seem to have anything to do with autism, like just flat out. So one of Lacey's old classmates would say, yeah, I saw her around 15 years ago, and she was definitely different from other kids her age. I mean, I knew that she wasn't your typical teenager. This is all a direct quote. She was smart. She was smart as hell. But I guess the best way to describe her was she wasn't as mature as us. She still likes childish things, like not teenage things. When she was 17 or 18, she was more into Disney movies and country music. Which again, I don't know how that's very different. She would invite us over to watch Disney movies despite being more withdrawn, but it's just not my forte. Again, she just had her own interests. I would hardly call that strange or a reflection of her diagnosis. So a lot of Lacey's friends, they're shocked when at 16 years old, Lacey gets pulled out of public school at the end of 9th grade, and she started to get homeschooled. Her parents stated that she had to be pulled out of school immediately, but it's so unclear, like, why? Side note, back then, homeschooling was not very common. And the Fletchers, they never gave examples of why, at least not yet, of what made them think, this is it. We need to pull her out of school for her own good. We need to make sure that her sports, her friends, her socialization, we need to cut it off. All they said was that Lacey's autism got worse. Which is strange because autistic people can struggle in a rigid school environment and they may need to be homeschooled either permanently or for a short period of time. But usually it's very important that there's a support network in place because literally every human on this earth needs a support group to help manage stress and keep up with interpersonal relationships so that they don't get isolated. But they just cut off all of Lacey's friends. Even if a kid is homeschooled, it is in the parents' best interest to let them keep their already established friendships. But allegedly, none of that happened. Allegedly, once Lacey started getting homeschooled, she was seen outside less and less. In fact, it just seemed like the couple stopped bringing Lacey up in conversations even. The last time someone distinctly, or at least reports remembering Lacey being brought up in conversations, was in 2010. Lacey would have been 23 at the time. The Fletchers walked into Dr. Bickham's office without Lacey and stated, "Our daughter Lacey is becoming reclusive. She never wants to leave the house or the couch." Interestingly, the Fletchers could have easily taken photos or videos to show Dr. Bickham what's going on. I mean, that seems like the very logical, common sense thing to do, but they brought along no footage. Just told him, "We don't know what's going on." Based on the Fletcher's description, it sounded like Lacey was dealing with extreme and sudden agoraphobia, which is a disorder when people are afraid of open spaces like public areas. On the milder side, it can be someone that has very extreme social anxiety, does not want to be in places that they're not comfortable with or cannot deem as a safe space, which public spaces, they tend to be a bit more unpredictable. But on the more extreme end, you have people who never leave the house. They deem the home or even a certain room of the home to be the only safe space in the entire world for them. And even stepping outside of that safe space could result in a panic attack. So this is very serious. Now, typically, agoraphobia is more likely in people that already struggle with anxiety, and it can get worse over time if it's not helped or treated. Someone's safe space can actually get smaller and smaller. So when it used to be the whole house, someone with agoraphobia can be like, actually, now it's only the back of the house. Actually, now it's only the living room. Which we have no idea if this is even what's happening to Lacey. All we have are her parents at her doctor's office saying she doesn't want to get off the couch and she's being antisocial. For all we know, she could have been tied to the couch. Side note, that is a theory later that comes up. And another side note, some people have just put the autism as a blanket statement over anything going on with Lacey at the time and why she was pulled out of school. And again, sure, maybe something was going on with Lacey, but we don't have proof. And autism doesn't suddenly change a person drastically. An autistic person who can speak, make friends, have hobbies, go to school, use the restroom by themselves, they don't just suddenly wake up one day and don't do those things. But a lot of people are like, oh, autism. That's not how it works. We have no idea why Lacey was pulled out of school. We have no idea what caused her parents to pull her out of school. So just to recap, Lacey is pulled out of school at 16. She was last seen by Robert Blades Sr. exercising outside when she was 21. The Fletchers tell Dr. Bickham that she stopped wanting to leave the house at age 23. Lacey was emailing a friend of hers at 27. And Robert Blades Sr. asked Clay about Lacey, and he said that she was fine and at home, and then changed the subject when Lacey was 30. 6 years later, Lacey Fletcher was found dead on the couch at 36 years old. Lacey Fletcher sat down on the couch one day, whether it was against her will or not, will be argued later, but she never got back up. How is that even possible? The first theory that came about online was that Lacey had locked-in syndrome, which we talked about earlier in the episode. Because when this case broke, a rumor started that she had locked-in syndrome, and everyone, including major news outlets, they just ran with it. They said that she had locked-in syndrome because it just answered all the questions of why and how is an able-bodied woman sitting in her own waste for 12 years until the couch fell apart. Locked-in syndrome was kind of this neat little package that answers every little question and gives people peace. But it's not true. Lacey did not have locked-in syndrome. She was able at some point to email her friends, or at least dictate what she wanted emailed to her friends. She was able to feed herself and even swallow the sofa foam and feces. So even if you have locked-in syndrome and someone is force-feeding you something, you cannot swallow. You have no control over any of your muscles except maybe your eyelids. You are fully locked into your body, which it appears Lacey was not. Side note, Dr. Bickham would later state that he had never heard of locked-in syndrome in his entire career, refuting the idea that Lacey Fletcher had this syndrome. And while she may not have had locked-in syndrome, it is a very real thing that does exist. It's just very rare. But it doesn't seem like Lacey had it, which leads us to the most confusing question of all of this. Then why didn't she just get up? There are a few theories on why, but the belief is, regardless of how it started, her leg muscles probably atrophied to the point where she could no longer be able to get up even if she wanted to. So she started off able-bodied, but her leg muscles might have been completely dead. Let's say, for whatever reason, you are unable to get up from a sitting position, whether that be from inner, mental, or outside physical force, you cannot get up. Your physical body is going to react to that. Have you ever slept and your leg fell asleep? Where you've been in one position for so long that your leg goes numb, and then when you finally take the pressure off that leg, you feel that tingling pins and needle feeling, and it's just uncomfortable. And if we realize it's happening, most of us can do something about it if we're able-bodied. But if Lacey had been sitting in that same position for long enough, her leg muscles would have atrophied on their own and started wasting away, becoming locked into place, paralyzing her. Over time, the pain and rotting of the flesh in her thighs and buttocks would have further paralyzed her muscles as well. Lacey was found in her legs crossed, in a position that most people would actually deem and describe as defensive rather than comfortable. Like, how long can you actually sit crisscross applesauce without getting uncomfortable? So let's just say that's how she first sat down on the couch. Again, we can't say for certain if this was or was not against her will because there are online theories about it, but let's just say she sat down like that. Soon, within minutes or hours, blood would flow more slowly to this area, which can lead to what I talked about, the bed sores. But it gets worse because this loss of blood is basically a crushing injury. Not as a description, but that's what they call it, like as if you're getting crushed. It just gets more and more dangerous over time as well. The tissue around her legs and butt were dying. If it gets really severe, surgery or even amputation would be necessary to correct the problem. At a certain point, since Lacey had been sitting for that long, even just getting up could kill her. So it's not like her parents are saying she just didn't want to get up from the couch. She could die by getting up from the couch. Not to overcomplicate it, but if you have a crushing injury like compartment syndrome, when there is high enough pressure on a limb or part of the body that blocks blood flow to that compartment of the body, for example, Lacey's legs and behind area, potassium starts to build up. And then when you get up or the pressure is suddenly taken off of that area, all that potassium has nowhere to go except straight into your bloodstream. And this rush of massive amounts of potassium causes a heart attack. And you can die. Lacey had been on that couch for 12 years. By year 1, it would have been shocking if Lacey was even able to use her legs at all. She would have been fully paralyzed. This is likely what could have happened to Lacey's physical body. But again, why? Why did she sit down and never get up? Even when she felt her legs falling asleep, even if she must have felt extreme discomfort in that position, why didn't she just move or reposition herself or get up entirely? Okay, fine. Let's say that she didn't want to get up from this couch. This couch is her safe space. There was some sort of mental barrier. Why didn't she change her positions around? There are 2 theories that people have considered online. Either there was a mental or emotional reason Lacey did not get up, or she was physically tied down in the beginning until her legs atrophied. Let's explore the first theory, that she chose to be on the couch. And just to preface, even if it was Lacey's choice, the fact that her parents didn't do anything to help her, that's not okay, in my opinion, if this theory is even true. I think it's still a tragic, horrible case of neglect that borders abuse because of how severe it is. But some people theorize that Lacey had developed agoraphobia at 16 and it escalated, developing worse and worse every single year until it reached a point where Lacey's only safe space was the couch that she was on. She didn't want to get off the couch. And the theory goes that the Fletcher parents, they didn't know how to handle this. They thought Lacey was being this lazy teenager who didn't want to socialize, work, or go to school. And it started off as a stubbornness problem. Well, if you don't want to get off the couch, we're not going to take care of you. But eventually that evolved into the Fletcher parents building resentment and denial towards Lacey and the condition. This is, again, a theory. This theory is the kindest towards the Fletcher parents. It's the theory that her parents became so overwhelmed by her, quote, issues that they just kept ignoring the, quote, problem for 12 years until Lacey died. Some people argue that caregiver resentment is very real and that maybe her parents were in denial about how bad it was getting until it was too late. One detail that I guess supports this theory, not really because I have a hard time getting behind this theory, but anyway, a supporting detail, I guess you could argue, is that Lacey was still emailing her friends in 2014 when she was around 27 years old. A few of her old high school friends received emails and they sounded very much like Lacey. They were filled with passion and she was sending them links of videos from Disney. Not of her at Disney, but like of Disney. There was no hint that she was trapped anywhere or being abused. We have no idea if Lacey was given her phone, had access to her phone to send these emails. We have no idea if she told someone what she wanted to say in the email and someone sent it. We have no idea if someone wrote the email for her. We have no clue. We just know that these emails were sent under her email address and they sounded very much like her. And I guess the people that are in support of this theory, they think if Lacey's parents were actively abusing her or torturing her in some way, would they want her to have her phone to message her friends? Like, what if she told them something? What if she reached out for help? And then a few years before that, Lacey's parents went to Dr. Bickham, remember, to talk about how Lacey was becoming very socially reclusive. Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just act like she went to the big city, moved on, got married, went to college? Side note, I saw arguments as well that some autistic people struggle to explain when they're in pain and explain exactly how much pain they're in, which has led to serious issues. But I don't know how that applies because that's usually for injuries that can't be seen from the outside, like appendicitis. I want to include it because it has been mentioned, but I just don't think that autism really has anything to do with this case other than the media reaction of justifying and almost answering Lacey's death by just saying, oh, blanket statement, autism. But other than that, I don't see how the fact that she was autistic applies to the questions that need to be answered. Lacey had sores all over her flesh that was rotting. Maggots were eating away at her, consuming her right in front of her parents. Who cares if she was autistic or not? Like, I don't think anyone needed for her to verbally say, hey guys, I'm in pain. And there have been theories of how Lacey went from being a socially active 16-year-old girl to not leaving the couch. One of the more popular theories are severe agoraphobia. Some people speculate that Lacey could have also developed schizophrenia, with the average age of onset tending to be around 20 to 30 for women. So they're like, what if she was schizophrenic? And perhaps schizophrenia was causing her hallucinations that made her terrified to leave the couch in fear of some sort of perceived danger out there. Or maybe she had some sort of brain injury that caused her to suddenly behave differently and her parents had no idea how to give her care. Another supporting theory is that Lacey was kept alive for 12 years. A person can usually only live about a few days without water and a few weeks without food. And although Lacey was severely malnourished, she was getting enough food and fiber to at least defecate. Which, side note, this is a big part of life. Extreme constipation can actually cause death on its own by blocking the intestines and the colon. So Lacey was getting enough food to defecate and pass urine. She also had all of her front teeth when she died. So someone, whether it was Lacey or her parents, someone was helping her brush her teeth for her. Could the parents have been so far in denial that they just didn't understand that Lacey could no longer move and get up on her own or even use the toilet right next to the couch? Maybe they thought, even in year 10, that her legs had not atrophied, even though they were completely rotten and eaten by maggots. They just thought that she was being stubborn and a lazy kid. Or they thought that they were being good, authoritative parents. They're like, you're stubborn. Well, we're not going to do what you want us to do. After all, some people argue that the parents clearly brought her a toilet to use and put it up right next to the couch, provided her with baby wipes and baby powder for her, as well as an option to have clean clothes that were sitting right next to her and her favorite movies laid out on the side. Someone's brushing her teeth, which caregivers have stated brushing a patient's teeth is actually a very strenuous, stressful process. Why would they do that unless to a degree they cared about her? That's the theory. I don't believe it, and I'm very reluctant to state when I don't believe theories strongly. I just don't see this one. It doesn't answer any questions for me. Like, never say never, so sure, maybe this is how the Fletcher parents felt personally, but it's still not really acceptable in my opinion. I mean, ignoring someone's depression, maybe I could try to understand it a little more. Maybe they're locked in their room and they don't talk to you. They don't communicate with you. That's something where I'm more kind of like, maybe the parents didn't fully understand it, or maybe they're very ignorant about these mental illnesses. But when someone has sores down to their bones, like their body is a mixture of holes and black and blue from tissue death, and there are maggots crawling around eating your child, consuming your child's flesh, how can they be in denial? Even in very rare cases, we might sometimes hear, once in a blue moon, stories of people keeping their loved ones' deceased bodies. Like, no matter how much decomposition is happening, because these people are in denial of their loved one's death. But that denial typically extends all the way into other aspects of that person's life. They will be in denial about their loved one's death. They will still talk to them. They will still talk about them with other people as if they're still alive. But for the Fletcher parents, they were completely normal when they went outside to socialize. They never spoke about Lacey later on. It's as if she didn't exist. Most of their friends didn't even know that they had a kid. If they were in denial, wouldn't they talk about Lacey as if she's still alive and doing well? She's just being a lazy kid and not melting into the couch. It's like they're hiding it, in my opinion. You know, people online have stated when parents love their kids and will do anything for them, but their circumstances are just really bad, they don't have the funds to get their child the proper care. The state won't help. There's no other option. They feel lost and heartbroken that they can't do more for their child. That is clearly not the case with the Fletchers. The Fletchers would have enough to pay bail for the both of them. That amounts to $72,000 in cash. They could have easily found Lacey a long-term facility to help her because they can't be the ones to help her. So it's not that they had a lack of funds. Not only that, they live in Slaughter, Louisiana. The community there is incredibly strong. Everyone wants to help their neighbors, and they're popular members of the community. You're telling me that the community wouldn't have rallied together to help Lacey? But the point is, the Fletchers didn't even try. So while denial, I think, is a powerful thing, and being a caretaker is a very complex role, I don't believe that the Fletchers could have been in denial for 12 years. Every parent that I personally know, even seeing their child sick with a cold, a flu for a day, it physically and mentally pains them. But it is a theory, so I have to tell you about it. One of the Fletchers' neighbors even stated, "The Fletchers are good people who just made bad decisions." One netizen commented on the case and said, "It can be extremely stressful for caregivers. Could Lacey have avoided her tragic end if more support and help were given to the parents who cared for her?"
Support to the parents?
Yeah. They may have been really helpless and did not know what to do.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty horrendous comment to make. Could Lacey have avoided her tragic end? The comment said. Another netizen points out, they didn't even have her in a private room ignoring her. Like, they walked by her every single day and watched what happened. That's disgusting. That's not denial. And another big thing to note, the parents weren't so in over their heads that they didn't have time or energy to be a part of the community. They always showed themselves in a very positive light to their neighbors and colleagues. They were very much active in social life. So they seemed involved in other interpersonal relationships. So they had the energy for that.
Yeah, and the fact that it's been so many years, it's like every day it's a decision. Every minute, every hour is a decision that they're making.
And it's only
not to save her life.
And more painful for her to be alive in that state too.
Exactly.
So now we head into the third theory. The Fletchers were torturing their only daughter, Lacey. This is the theory that most people, including law enforcement, seem to believe. A lot of it has to do with the fact that Sheila even outright lied to the police, stating that Lacey's last meal was the sandwich and the Cheetos. And we know that's not true. And there are two versions of this theory. I would say that law enforcement probably believed the latter theory, but the former theory, I'm going to run through it. The first version is that people believe that something traumatic happened to Lacey and then it spiraled into this. So this is very conspiracy vibes. This is based off of zero evidence, just from what little facts we know about the case. Some netizens have kind of spun together a theory of what they think might have happened. The first theory is that she was somehow injured. She had some sort of brain injury and all she could do was sit there. Or a traumatic event caused something in her brain to shift. Like SA could be an example of a traumatic event. And I know that SA is a wild theory to just throw out there. Some netizens believe this theory a bit more because Clay and Sheila went to see Dr. Bickham in 2010. They stated that Lacey was acting differently, and some people who have been sexually abused will try and make themselves seem repulsive to their attacker, like they refuse to wash. Or they will have kind of a drastic shift in their personality because of the trauma, which still is very crazy theory just to toss around. But I don't think that anyone is trying to string together heinous things for the sake of it. I think people are genuinely trying to understand how this could happen to someone and how evil someone has to be to just watch it happen. Anyway, the theory continues that after a traumatic event, whether it be SA or some sort of physical injury, Lacey was no longer the same. And maybe the theory is her parents caused that shift in some way, shape, or form. And they can't get her help because she might tell someone. They can't get her admitted because she might tell someone. So they just sit her down on the couch. And from there, her legs start atrophying and it escalates into this situation where they still do not want to get her help. There's also a theory that she was tied to the couch in that position until her legs naturally atrophied. And that is, again, purely a theory. There is zero evidence that she was tied to the couch on or before the day she died. But she was on the couch for the past 12 years. And like we said, within the first year, her legs were probably paralyzed and stuck in that position. So we don't know if maybe the first year she was on that couch, she could have been tied up. Who's to say? So the conspiracy is something bad happened. Parents don't want it to get out. Lacey is forced onto couch till her legs atrophy. Parents kept Lacey alive to torture her. Again, this is purely based on theory and not fact. Now, one aspect that people cannot get over is the fact that Lacey was found nude, except the shirt pulled over her chest. The nude part, maybe the parents stopped dressing her because they knew that she would just soil herself again, but why not let her have her top on? Why was it pulled up above her chest? Did it hurt the wounds on her back? Because then they said that she wasn't in pain and she never said that she was in pain. So why would it be pulled up? It just feels extra degrading. Like either take it all the way off or pull it down. I guess a lot of people have been reading into it. It feels very humiliating. The other theory is something was going on with Lacey where she was terrified to leave the couch, but the parents believed that she was just being a difficult teenager. So they stubbornly told her, fine, sit on the couch then. And they started torturing her basically out of spite. Even before Lacey passed with just sofa foam and feces in her stomach, she was malnourished. It was chronic. So that means over time, Lacey was not getting enough nutrients or food. So the parents, they're going out to eat. They're going on trips. They're going away for the weekends, hanging out with friends. Lacey was alone, starving. That sounds like torture. Some people think that even the toilet seat and the cleaning supplies being so close to the couch was a form of psychological torture. Like, look at everything you could use if you just get up, but you can't. Because why was it there? I mean, it's really clear. Like, half of her body has disintegrated and melted. What do you mean get up to use the restroom? I think anyone with a brain, in my opinion, would know that she cannot get up to use that toilet, even if it's pulled up right next to the couch. She can't even move her position. And a lot of people argue the teeth thing, that's not the parents being in denial. That feels like torture. That feels like you're keeping her alive to prolong some sort of torture. Like, this is no way for a parent to see their child live. But if that's the case, why would Sheila call 911 when Lacey died? Most people didn't even know the Fletchers had a daughter, and the ones who did, they thought that she moved away and started her own life. Nobody was suspicious of the Fletchers in any way. Why wouldn't they just dispose of her body, even bury her in the backyard? Who would know? One neighbor reported that someone might have forced Sheila to call the police. And just to preface, there is no proof about what I'm about to say, but there's a running theory based off of an allegation given by a third party that is not involved, so take it with a bottle of salt. Allegedly, Sheila didn't call 911 because Lacey's heart stopped and she wanted her to be saved or wanted the authorities to know that her daughter was dead. Allegedly, there was a neighbor who peeked through their window that last day on January 3rd, saw Lacey on the couch, and told the Fletchers, "What the hell is going on inside your house?" Like, maybe they had come over to knock on the door and they didn't answer or something, or they had looked through the window when the Fletchers had gone away for New Year's. We don't know. But they threatened the Fletchers, if you don't call the cops, I'm going to call the cops. So Sheila was forced to call 911 and report Lacey being dead.
The timing of that, though.
Yeah, that's what one of the neighbors had stated, that they were told. We have no idea if this is true. Either way, one netizen commented on this case and said, "I think her parents are liars. And considering the lotions and other toiletries that were reportedly found near the sofa with clean clothes, I believe some sort of psychological torture was happening in conjunction with the prolonged starvation." And there's something else that bothers me. If the media is correct about Lacey and she was found almost completely nude, her top pulled up above her chest, why? Was this an attempt to further humiliate her? And as unlikely as it may sound given the circumstances, was she essayed? This is all speculation, of course. We will have to wait for the trial for the truth to come out. That is what a comment says. Now, other commentators say, "I believe one Fletcher will turn on the other in hopes of not dying in prison." But I guess none of the theories really answer every question neatly. And again, they're just theories, just lingering questions. And another one is, how did the parents live with the smell? How did nobody smell it on them? So to try and answer that question, maybe the parents developed olfactory fatigue, nose blindness. It's when your nose gets so used to a certain smell that you can no longer smell it. Actually, we do this all the time. So it's like how your eyes can technically see your nose 24/7, but our brains block it out. Our nose can smell our own house scent, but our nose blocks it out so that if there's any other foreign scent, like a dangerous, the toast is burning, we can smell it better instead of becoming overstimulated. So maybe that can explain why the Fletchers were able to live with that smell. But what about the other people? How could they not smell it on them? Oddly, no one ever reported a smell coming from the Fletchers or the house. The Fletchers were finally arrested, and Dr. Bickham, the coroner, had fought to get a team of medics on standby outside the courtroom while pictures of Lacey were being viewed by the jury, just in case. He said, "The jurors are storekeepers, farmers. Many of them have never been exposed to this kind of stuff, so I need a medical team to be outside the courtroom." Wow. The DA stated that the photos left the courtroom speechless. He said, "When I was presenting the case and showed the pictures and gave the timeline, the expressions of the grand jury was utter shock. Like the clock on the wall never moved again. There was just complete silence. Some jurors were gasping in horror. Some were just staring out in disbelief." So this was not the actual trial. The jury were there to decide whether or not the parents would be charged with manslaughter, negligent homicide, or second-degree murder. Negligent homicide is when someone's criminally negligent behavior causes another person's death. But the requirement, I guess you could say, is that that person responsible failed to realize that their behavior was so dangerous that it could kill someone. Like the intent was not to kill. One of the most notable cases would be an Air Peru flight that crashed and killed 70 passengers and crew. To oversimplify it, pilots and crew realized that something was wrong while they were flying. They were way too low in altitude, but they didn't know that. So their reading instruments were off. And it's because a maintenance staff of this flight team had put adhesive tape on static ports of some of the instruments while they were cleaning and forgot to take it off. And these static ports are so important on telling the pilot how high up they were. So when they tried to do an emergency landing, they fell into the Pacific Ocean and they all passed. He was charged with negligent homicide. So it is ingrained in flight staff. Make sure nothing is covering the static ports. But because of his negligent behavior, people died. But he never had the intent, like he didn't have a manifesto in his house of like, I'm gonna kill people. This is the lightest of the 3 charges that were on the table for Lacey Fletcher's case. The sentencing for negligent homicide is typically 0 to 5 years. Manslaughter is very similar to negligent homicide in the sense that someone's behavior caused another person's death, but it is also done so without premeditation or intent. Meaning nobody sat there thinking, if I do action A, I'm gonna kill person B, so I need to do action A because my goal is to kill person B. The idea is more, oops, I did action A for whatever reason and it ended up killing person B. So for example, voluntary manslaughter, a good example would be if you come home and you see your wife in bed with another man. You grab a lamp and in your fit of passion and anger because you were provoked into this response, you slam the lamp down on the man's head and he dies. So there is a level of risk, recklessness associated with manslaughter, but you weren't coming home on the drive thinking, I can't wait to kill this person. I need to kill this person. A lot of it comes from the provocation, like you were in a crime of passion almost. The sentencing for manslaughter is typically anywhere between 0 to 40 years. And then the third charge that was being considered for this case, the harshest of the 3, was second-degree murder, which is intentional homicide that is not premeditated. If it's premeditated, it would be first-degree murder. An example of second-degree murder would be you're burglarizing someone's home and the homeowner comes home and you accidentally kill them. You didn't go in there with the intent to kill anyone. You're not trying to be a murderer. You're just trying to make some money, right? But you went there to rob the homeowner and then you killed them. You knew the risks associated with robbing someone. So to compare, for manslaughter, you come home, your wife's cheating on you, it's the heat of the moment. There's a shock of emotion that might have led you to do something. When you're burglarizing someone's house and the homeowner comes home, you can't argue, I was in the heat of the moment, I wasn't expecting them to come home. It's their home. You knew that there is a chance that they could come home.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly the definition of
second-degree murder. It's murder, yeah. So, there is intent, but there's not necessarily premeditation of like, we're going to go into their house, rob their valuables, and then kill them.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the DA was fighting for second-degree murder charges, which a lot of people wanted to see first-degree murder, but I guess legally second-degree murder made the most sense, and it could lead to a life sentence. The DA argued with the jury, we don't treat animals or neglect even our pets in that way. If we have an animal in that condition, you take them to the vet. If you're not capable of providing the care for that pet, you get help. You can't say Lacey wasn't in pain. On murder, you have to have intent. Did they want to kill Lacey? I want to say, yeah, they wanted to kill her. Lacey hadn't seen a doctor in 20 years. The jury said they would be indicted and charged with second-degree murder. So the parents will be tried. They have pled not guilty, and it doesn't seem like there's a trial date set yet, but it does seem to be like it'll be sometime in 2024. We will keep an eye out on that. It's just, it's a lot. Both the Fletcher's bail were set at $300,000 each. They used a bondsman, which means they had to put up around 12% of that bail, so they would have needed $72,000 in cash to cover for the both of them, which they paid, and again, shows that if they really wanted to help Lacey, they could, to a degree, afford to help her. The couple's attorney, Stephen Moore, released a statement on behalf of the parents, and he said they don't want to relive the pain of losing a child through the media. Yeah.
Wow.
They have been through a lot of heartache over the years. Anyone who has lost a child knows what it's like.
Oh my God. Don't even start on that. I
think
that's even more triggering for parents to hear that.
all I saw were parents on Reddit, like ready for blood.
Yeah.
The couple also went to post on Facebook in just one sentence, "Mom and Dad love you so much," about Lacey's death. They never mentioned Lacey's passion for Disney, her favorite country song, the way she loved to be active and move her body or engage in sports. Nothing. One Redditor wrote, "Lacey's parents horrify me. How could they allow this to happen? They insist that she chose this life. If so, she wasn't in her right mind to choose. They had a duty to help her and not stubbornly say, 'Fine, shit there then,' until it became a living nightmare. That was absolutely evil in my opinion. If this was about pride, it's just as evil as if they tied her to the couch. If they restrained Lacey, it was sadism. It was still sadism even if they didn't restrain her, because empathy and love would soften their hearts to not allow Lacey to suffer and be degraded like that." Other netizens just simply commented on this case, "There is no excuse. There is no explanation." What are your thoughts on this? And if you're a parent, do you have any extra thoughts on what it's like to be a parent? Like, how can you see your child like that? Does it make sense to be in denial about something like this? Is the only viable theory that they just wanted to torture their only daughter? Please leave it in the comments and please be safe. I will see you guys on Wednesday for the next episode. Bye.
Bada bing, bada boo.
This video is going to look a little bit different. I don't know if you guys watched the last one, but I was sick for 2 weeks. I'm fine now, but I tried my best to research and do all these things in bed. It just was not very good, but I'm back. I feel 1,000 times better, and we are working on a lot of very important cases right now. We're working with a victim's family member on a case. There's a lot of just strange things that have been happening that we want to bring these cases to you guys, but we want them to be good. So it's taking a little bit of time, and we didn't want to go without any videos. So this is going to be the video that we are posting that is not totally new and fresh. This video was actually filmed maybe a year ago, and it was posted on a different channel of mine, a separate one called Stephanie Soo. The story is about 2 different women in China who lived very drastically different lives. One woman was kidnapped by a TikToker, a Douyin or influencer in China, and she was held hostage in his house for a very long time. And then another woman, she cried tears of joy 30 minutes before she was executed by the country for murder. This was from a year ago. I might look a little bit different. I might sound a little bit different, but I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys in the next one that will be just the rotten mangoes that you're used to. I'm just gonna start with a universal truth, okay? You should never buy stuff illegally. I feel like that's just a global law, especially things that shouldn't be and can't be sold in the first place, like pandas. Did you know that you can't buy a panda? Did you know that all pandas are owned by China? They are only native in China, and all the pandas that are in all the zoos across the world, they're on loan from China. But it also means, unlike any other animal, no other government, no other individual can own a panda. So in China, the punishment to buy a panda in the underground breeding market, which I assume is not that big of a breeding market, but if you do end up somehow buying a panda, you will be sentenced to more than 10 years in prison.
That's actually less than I thought. They're considered a national treasure, so it's a big deal.
I mean, yeah, but like 10 years, that's the minimum sentence for buying a panda. That's a lot. I mean, there are people that have done worse things that get out in like 2 years. If you buy 2 parrots, special breed parrots, you will be sentenced to more than 5 years in prison in China. And I'm telling you this because recently a case in China has taught everyone that a woman is less than a panda and even less than 2 birds. Let's talk about the viral TikTok Douyin case of the chained woman. Okay, so there is like a whole niche of creators online, and you're gonna see them pop up from like all over the world on TikTok. Like you see them in America, Europe, Asia, Africa. They're called feel-good influencers. So it's not that they're happy. They're not influencers that are, you know, your happy place. They're literally in the business of making you feel good. So most of their videos, they go something like this. First video. This man right here is without a home. You guys, I'm gonna let him tell his story. Then the person will share their struggles with being without a home and how that's impacted their lives, their children's lives, their family. And then later, a follow-up video will be made using the donations that viewers have sent in, where the man without a home is surprised with all the money. It's like this universal moment, even if you don't understand the language, because I've seen different countries do this and it pops up on my TikTok feed because because, you know, it's like a thing I do watch until the end, okay? And it's a moment of like intense understanding, humanity, hope for the future, that we can all change the world, make it a better place. And almost always, it's a select number of trending, heartwarming, uplifting music that is playing in the back. Listen, I'm not on these influencers. I hope that majority of these influencers are genuine, because I'm literally on that side of TikTok. I will watch every single one of them. I will even donate to the GoFundMes because it just makes my heart hurt. But in the end, it also makes me and everyone else feel good. You know, you feel good in the end almost. You're on this like emotional journey. You feel so bad. You feel grateful for your life. You feel like you should be thankful for your things. And then you feel good in the end. They're in the business of making people feel good. And if these good, positive energy influencers are legit, then they are changing the world. But in every industry where there are no regulations and there's money to be made, how do you know if all of them are legit? How do you know which ones are hiding dark secrets behind their positive energy facade? Recently in China, a father of 8 went viral on Douyin, which is the TikTok in China. And the dad's name is Tong Qimin. We're gonna call him Mr. D. It's literally like Daddy of 5 all over again, but Daddy of 8. And I can see why everyone was just quickly obsessed, okay? I would probably be one of those people. Mr. D had a really intense story. His mom was in her 80s and he was taking care of his disabled older brother. He had 8 children that ranged from 3 years old to 10 years old, and he was raising them all by himself in this tiny little village in China. He had like no heat during the winters. They had no flooring in their house. It was just like dirt in the floor, and with no partner in sight to help him. He's like a single father of 8. But the crazy thing is, I mean, nobody would even blame Mr. D for being a sour, mean old man, just a douchebag. Imagine that kind of pressure to feed that many people, to do all this housework. You know, if he was a little bit mean, nobody would be mad. His life was pretty miserable. But even though that he's barely making it by, the children have no clothes, they have like no food, it was rough, he was such a happy, positive person online.
家人们下午好，我叫董志民，8个孩子的爸爸。
大哥，咱现在火了，有什么感想？
主要是感谢那个全国的爱心人士，要不是你们的支持和帮助，靠我就是种那2亩地，加上孩子还吃了奶粉，我也不易。
大哥，你有这8个孩子有后悔过吗？
没有啊，后悔的啥？不后悔。只要有大人不吃的，还能饿着小孩了，叫他。现在那个生活虽然也困难点呗。那不代表以后小孩子们长大了还困难。最大的梦想，我就是慢慢的把小孩都拉拔成人看着他们健健康康的成长。
So his story starts getting attention on social media. Bigger TikTokers are reposting his videos, giving him shout outs, being like, hey guys, look at this family, go follow them, go show them some love. Some of the local TikTokers that live in nearby cities or the towns, they would go and visit Mr. D, and they would draw more attention to Mr. D. They're like, go look at this family, guys. Look, I'm with this family. This is what we're doing. Look at how he lives. Guys, I'm going to link his GoFundMe. It was like this whole ordeal. And the TikTokers, they would show the whole world the harsh truth that everyone likes to ignore. I mean, most of their audiences were like in their heat-controlled homes in the winter, laying in their clean sheets and blankets with the smell of dinner seeping up from downstairs. But a good majority of the audience had never seen conditions like this. So it was eye-opening, and it was what people call poverty porn in a lot of different industries, like the reality shows that show that. Yeah, we've talked about it before. That's like the label people put on it. So it was kind of a mixture of that. Like people were amazed at how tattered the clothings of the children were, and it just was heartbreaking. They even interviewed Mr. D for their TikToks, where he shared more about his life. They were like, okay, well, tell us about your life. And he's like, okay, well, I receive maybe $430 from the government every month to feed all these kids. That's not a lot. That's for everything. My housing, feeding them, clothes. I mean, I gotta make sure that they get to college. That's my dream. And the TikTok would end with the influencer saying, guys, please go follow Dad of 8 on Douyin. Please, and check the link to see how you can help their family and donate.
想吃糖果的快来，我给你发糖果吃。谁最大？你老几？老二给。谁老三？你老三。给小八。
Literally, all of this sounds completely normal. I feel like I would even share that video or even talk about it or like try to draw attention to this family because, I mean, who wouldn't? And soon, father of 8 children gained like 200,000 followers on Douyin. And he's like, okay, I can make money this way. It's like the best way, which makes sense. Nobody's dogging on him for that. So dad of 8 children starts live streaming, accepting donations, accepting gifts. And in the early videos, Mr. D would show his children and he tried to answer all the questions that were most frequently asked. Like, why do you have 8 kids? And he said, I never had a wife until I was 34 years old. I was single, and in the village, that's something that everyone looks down upon when you're single for that long. Yeah. So when I finally got a wife, it just happened. We started having kid after kid after kid, and yeah, I guess it makes sense, you know, no judgment. Then another frequently asked question was, will you ever put up the kids for adoption? And he said without any hesitation, I wouldn't. As the children have already been born into my family, I have to raise them. They're my responsibility, you know? We never terminated any pregnancies. He was very proud of that, by the way. You think of that what you will. And he said, among the 8 children, 7 of them are boys, and 1 of them is a girl. Now, this is where the story starts taking an interesting turn. People are like, wait, what about the one-child policy? What the fork is going on right now, okay? And people start asking, well, what are the kids' names? What should we call the kids? And he responded, well, you guys want to know the kids' names. So the girl's name is Silver Phoenix, literal translation. So it's not like a meaning. Okay, so you know how Chinese characters can have a deeper meaning and stuff? It's like that in Korea. If your name is Chisu, the Chi has a meaning in the traditional Hanja, like the traditional Korean character. And then Su has a meaning. So it could mean like beautiful angel, but the direct translation would not be Chisu in English is beautiful angel. But his direct translation was like Silver Phoenix. Yeah, it was like...
That's the meaning, yeah.
Yeah, that was like really direct. And then the boys had very peculiar meanings too. Names, Hong Kong. Aerospace.
Hong Kong?
Yeah.
His name is Hong Kong?
Yeah,
Hong Kong?
Hong Kong. Yeah.
Interesting.
Aerospace, Gold Mountain,
Okay.
Silver Mountain, Treasury, International. Okay, so of course the viewers, I mean, they had the same reaction like we did, which is like, okay, we're not judging, but like, what? Who named these kids? Was there a meaning behind, you know, all these different names? Like, there's got to be a story behind this. No one names their kids that without a good story, right? And he calmly explained, the story is, the money from the Gold Mountain goes to the Silver Mountain, then it goes to the bank, and the bank's money goes to the Treasury, and if the Treasury is unable to keep the money, it goes international or into aerospace, or to Hong Kong.
What?
Okay, so
What in the world?
basically, he was really adamant that at least one of his kids would have money.
It's obvious that his education level isn't high.
Yeah.
And that's how they usually name kids.
I think it's also supposed to be like, okay, like the money is going to end up in one of my kids' pockets. Because if it doesn't stay in the bank, it goes to the treasury. If it doesn't go there, it goes to this and it goes to aerospace. Does that make sense? So he's like thought of all the loopholes of where the money could be sent. And he was like, got that covered. Got it covered, okay? I mean, the sentiment of it all was just hope, which is a good sentiment we can get behind. Fine, a little bit strange, but that's fine. We can get behind some fun names. People are naming their children all sorts of weird things. I mean, have you heard these celebrity kids' names these days? Even weirder. I think the only frequently asked question that wasn't well answered was, where the hell is their mother? And all he would say was, the children's mom is the hero of the family. That was like it. Nobody wanted to push it because maybe he didn't want to air out the dirty laundry online. Maybe he didn't want the kids to see him talking to the mom. Maybe the mom passed away and it was too sensitive of a subject. Maybe she cheated and left, right? Everyone tried to remain respectful. Like, guys, stop asking. Like, we don't need to know, okay? That is until January 27th of 2022. The whole case blew up. I'm talking wide open. All of Douyin, TikTok, everything blew up. A famous TikToker had traveled to the village to do like a collab of sorts with the father of 8 children. He wanted to show his followers how, you know, Mr. D was living and how they could help. And as he's browsing around the home, taking some time to think about how to best film this type of video, he saw this little shed in the corner. It is like a very small shed that even upon his arrival, he had seen it. And in his head, he's thinking, that's probably like a doghouse, right? But there was a small door and it wasn't boarded up. There was no chains around the door. There was no like crazy padlock. And inside, he sees like a tiny pale person peeking out and like staring at him. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna go in there because that's really weird. Is that like another child? Maybe that's like the brother. I want to meet this person. He goes into the shed and he sees that there is a woman in there that looks hungry, malnourished. There was evidence of torture. She was chained to the wall through her neck, like a dog collar, and it was chained to the wall. She scurried back when he saw her, and now this is where it just starts really getting crazy, okay? He runs into the shed and he's filming the situation. Inside the shed, there's a woman and a tiny mattress on the ground. That's about it. The woman was in freezing cold winter. She was barefoot, very thin clothes on, and chained up. Even her food was given to her in like a dog bowl. There was a food bowl that was just kind of sitting on the ground, and inside of it was just frozen congee, which congee is like rice boiled in water. It's not very a nutritious dense dish. There was a cold steamed bun on top. The only warmth that she had was like this moldy beat up blanket, if you could even call it a blanket. Honestly, I think it's too thin to even be called a towel. Yeah, she was standing there and her eyes, you can see it in the video briefly. I don't know if that's how I would describe it, but people keep saying they look glassed over. Like she looks like she hasn't been herself in years. You know, it looks like her soul had been like ripped out of her. She only had a couple teeth left, and even when she tried to talk, she was slurring her words.
你好，冷吗？不冷，我给你拿个衣服穿上吧。我给你拿个衣服穿上吧。我给你拿个衣服去，好不好？我给你拿件衣服，我看你咱有爱心人士捐出衣服，我给你拿一件。你这饭凉了吗？饭凉了吗？你能不能？ 我这样说话，你能不能听懂？我跟你说话能听懂吧？不能。是不是？是不是能听懂一点点？我跟你说话，不能是吧？不能把这筷子放下，这个饭还能吃吧？
She seemed too weak to even be fully present. She seemed fully disoriented. She seemed incredibly timid. He asked her if she was cold and whether she could understand him, and she shook her head repeatedly. He was genuinely shocked. He looked up at the camera and he said, what has this woman gone through in this cold weather? Where did all the donations go?
Mm. 这个天气是这个大姐经历了什么？我们的爱心到哪里去了？哎，往前去。冷穿上吧，好吧，冷，那我给你拉上，好吧？冷吧？
The video ended and he posted it online. And this is what blew the case up. I mean, the question remained and lingered, and everyone that was watching was, you know, who the hell is she? Where did she come from? Why is she chained up? Where is her family? Why did nobody care that there's a woman chained up in the shed? Like, they didn't try to hide her that well. So are you telling me no neighbors knew? No villagers came over and never investigated this shed? So these people, the netizens are blowing up the comments like, we gotta do something. Which, like, yeah, we do. But the TikToker who posted this original video, he made a response and he was like, you guys don't have to call the police. I just wanted everyone to care for the poor family and urge the father to treat his wife well with the help of the public opinion.
Wait, the TikToker who exposed this story?
Yeah.
Post a story saying you guys don't have to freak out anymore?
Yeah, like, we're handling it and this is his wife and he's gonna like treat her well. What? And that's all I wanted. Meanwhile, the father of 8 children was still active and he was responding to all the questions and the backlash. Like, can you imagine that he's still active on social media right now? And he's saying that, hey guys, everyone, this is not like a kidnapped woman. My wife was mentally unstable and she was pretty violent. So to prevent her from smashing things and hurting my elderly mother, or even the children, I chained her up in an isolated room in the house.
Like a dog?
Yeah.
In the freezing cold?
This was his defense. This was his, like, hey guys, like, don't be mad at me because I have a good reason.
Okay.
And then he said, but whenever she was not violent, I would let her out. That was his best argument.
Wow.
That was his defense. So yeah, no, the public was like not satisfied. So the video starts circulating everywhere and the internet theories are going crazy. Some speculate that she was human trafficked rather than being a mentally unstable wife and mother. Some thought that she was an insane mother. And some people were even commenting, if she's insane, then I'm worried that her kids have mental illnesses that were passed down. Some people commented, I think that she probably was good looking and mentally stable, but because she had been chained and trafficked and probably assaulted, she gradually went insane. She can be insane and still a victim. You guys know that, right? Another comment read, she doesn't look very old. Why did her teeth all fall out? Someone made a wild guess under that comment and said, maybe she bit someone to defend herself while they tried assaulting her and they broke her teeth off. Another theory was...
Jeez.
The woman was probably abducted when she was like 12, 13 years old. I heard that Mr. D and his brothers and even his own father used to use the chained woman and nearby villagers knew about it. But nobody intervenes because all the villagers are like animals. So very quickly, Mr. D goes from this like loving father of 8 children to human trafficker overnight. Listen, no angle of this is looking good for this guy. Even if what he said is true, who chains up their mentally ill wife? Like, who does that? People replayed the video over and over and over again and tried to decipher what she was saying. Because remember I said that she was slurring her words, she didn't seem fully there.
Somewhere far away. It's impossible for me to leave. The world doesn't want me anymore. The world doesn't want me.
And netizens all agreed that she was saying these couple of phrases. Will they let me back? They would never let me back. The world doesn't want me. The room is full of rapists. That's what they gathered. And it completely set this whole thing on fire. Everyone was outraged, like rightfully so. And they started a nationwide campaign for justice, for answers. And finally, someone other than TikTokers responded to the backlash. The county that the village was in, announced that, hey guys, calm your tits. We are going to be interviewing the locals. We're going to do like an investigation, okay? And we're going to work with the local medical institutions to get you some answers. And in their announcement, they told the public, there's no human trafficking in this case, okay? Like, we know this. No one's being human trafficked, y'all. You guys need to calm down. These internet theories are wild. This woman was not abducted. And second, she is chained up because she's mentally ill. And she beats people. So we're going to handle this. Thank you for your concern, internet. Yeah, that went over really well. The internet was like, okay, that's a good day. Let's call it a night, guys. Let's go on Twitter and do something else. Yeah, no. What kind of response was that? That only made everyone feel like something extra shady was going on. Are the authorities involved? Why are the authorities on this random dude's side when it's clear that he's chained up a woman in his shed? Netizens wanted to know, okay, if she's not abducted, whose daughter is she? Like, we're not going to rest until her biological family, not her little husband and his family, her biological family come forward and tell us that she was never taken and that she's fine. Second, just because you're mentally ill, does that mean anyone can chain you to a cold, shabby shed and force you to give birth to 8 children back to back? How is that not essay? The initial response only angered the netizens more, and it just added more fuel to the fire. And finally, Fengshan County was forced to release a second announcement, stating that the woman's name was Yang Qingsha. And they said Miss Yang was a woman without a home. She was begging for help when she came across Mr. D's house and his family let her stay with them. She was battling all sorts of mental illnesses at the time, but the two fell in love. So Miss Yang and Mr. D fall in love and decide to get married. So yeah, that's what happened. So there should be paperwork, right, of the marriage certificate. Well, no, the authorities said don't even try looking for it because Mr. D said that the staff who did their marriage registration, they were negligent and they did not identify Miss Young's identity, so it was complicated, yeah. We don't really have like an ID for her, like an actual physical copy of the ID, but she's Miss Young, we're pretty sure. Yeah, and she's married, and those are her 8 children. We did a DNA test. We even gave government subsidies to the family. They were like saying this as a flex. They were like, we gave them $400 a month for 8 kids. Don't even get me started on that. Like, someone get the county a PR team. They also mentioned that the chained woman, allegedly Miss Young, had been sent to the hospital for psychiatric treatment, and they never denied, confirmed, or even mentioned human trafficking, assault, forced birthing, abuse, none of that, again, in their second report. So yeah, their second report went over just as well as the first one. The netizens and journalists alike were so fed up, they started traveling to the village to demand answers.
What?
Meanwhile, netizens were doing some detective work because, I mean, the police aren't doing it, right? They found a woman that had gone missing like 26 years ago. Her name was Li Ying, and she was 12 when she went missing. She had this very like sweet looking face, very soft features, double eyelids, a round face, a small mole in the corner of her mouth. And the missing persons report stated she went to school one day and just never came home. Netizens did a comparison of the facial proportions. So this is like, I know it's kind of tricky to see if this is like viable, but usually the proportion of like your chin to your lip to ratio, they say it does get bigger as you age, but it stays pretty consistent. Like the gap between your nose and your top lip, it stays pretty consistent. You know, these types of proportions in your face. And they put the missing poster flyer picture as well as the chained woman's picture that was screen grabbed from the video. And they looked kind of similar, I'm not gonna lie to you. So they're like, okay, maybe this is the woman and it's not Miss Young, because nobody believes the county with anything they say. They don't even believe that this is Miss Young. Because if she's human trafficked, do you think that they would put her real name on the marriage certificate? Get out of here. No, they wouldn't. The chained woman was also said to have a thick Sichuan accent, and the missing girl was from that region. So now the authorities are getting even more dragged because it looked like the internet was doing more for this woman than they were, which the internet was. So they were forced to come out with a third statement. They said, Miss Young has been identified. And that's not her name. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Don't hate us, okay?
They're saying the name that they gave first time was not it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, and they're like, not my fault, guys. It was the county registration person's fault. It's not my fault. Her real name is Xiao Hua Mei. We're going to call her Mei. And she's from the Yunnan province. Now, both of her parents are dead, and a report claimed that a neighbor, on the request of May's parents, went out to find May a good husband. You know, her parents were worried because May wasn't a good catch. She was battling some mental illnesses. She had slurred speech. So the neighbor and May went out to search for a husband, and in the process, they got separated, right? You know how that happens. And the neighbor never called the police to let them know. Never let May's parents know either. Just came back home and was like, yeah, she's married. May's parents had no idea to whom, to where, like nothing. And to show you a map, to get from the province that May was originally from with the neighbor to the place she was found, it was across the country. And China is a big country.
Wow.
The county also claimed that May lost her teeth due to a genetic issue and not abuse. And other than that, they said that she was in a good mental and physical state. And like, guys, move on. We're the Kardashians. Move on, everyone. Nothing to see. They also claimed that they did DNA testing and all 8 children were May's. And I still don't know what the county was thinking. This was just not a great announcement. And the public, they still didn't understand. Okay, if this is true, why did nobody care that May was gone? And also, how did she get from the other side of China to this village? And you know what? Here's a really good question. Why the fuck was she chained? Like, none of this answers why the fuck she was chained. None of it. So because she was missing, she can be chained? Because she's mentally ill, she can be chained? Like, what are you saying? And mind you, up until this point, nothing was happening to Mr. D. He was a free man with no consequences. In fact, oddly, during this time, a wedding company had asked him to be a spokesperson. A wedding company. The public went insane. They said, how can a scum who chains his wife up and treats her like a birth-giving machine talk about happy marriages? What on earth is going on right now? But back to the chained woman, who is she? So was she Li Ying, whose face matched up according to the netizens, or was she May? You know, Li Ying's uncle came forward to ask for a DNA test because based on the videos and photos, he was sure that was his niece who had been missing since she was 12. You know, the one that was walking home from school? Again, this announcement only made people question the county more. Everything that the county said just felt so fishy at this point. Even if they start telling the truth, nobody would believe them. That's how people felt. So the county issued a 4th statement, February 10th of 2022. They said, hey everyone, calm down, okay? This woman is not Li Ying. Geez, this is May. We found May's half-sister. We did a DNA test and it confirmed that this woman is not Li Ying, but May, who I mean technically by all definitions went missing, but it was just never reported. And okay, fine. You know how we said there was no human trafficking involved? Maybe there was a little. We don't know. We're gonna look into it, okay? So it just left a bad taste in everyone's mouth because in the beginning, the county was like, oh my God, absolutely. You guys are there. The county was literally gaslighting the internet. Like, you guys are crazy. There's no human trafficking. What are you talking about? And now that people are getting upset and the anger, the outrage is not dying down, they're like, we will, it's a good point. We're gonna look into it, you know? But still, no answers. If this is May, and she did go missing because her neighbor took her out of the city or the village, who took her? Why didn't the neighbor report her missing? Why didn't she call the police? What happened from that day that she went missing to all the way to today? Because that's decades. And how come Mr. D is not arrested? Like, what has this woman gone through? Let the woman speak. It was so frustrating that a few volunteers drove all the way to the village, tried to break into the hospital that May, the chained woman, was in, that was heavily guarded, which, by the way, and they snuck in, tried to talk to May, but they were kicked out, and those volunteers went missing for a week. They lost contact with their friends, their family, they stopped posting online, wouldn't talk to anyone, they went dark for a week.
They were arrested, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which, of course, this incident blew up even more. 2 women tried to save a woman, and now these 2 women are in jail with God knows what happening to them. So this incident blows up more. Meanwhile, other netizens are getting riled up. The DNA results were never posted, and even May's sister said that she had DNA taken from her, and the police told her that's her half-sister, but they never provided the actual physical results. And everyone that knew May said that when she was younger, it just doesn't make sense. Like, this doesn't feel like it's May. So what if the county is just lying all over again? The public was dead set that this was Li Ying, and all the trust in the local officials was out the window and gone, and nobody was trusting them ever again. And then scandal after scandal and discrepancies, and then people started doing the math. They're like, wait, if this is May, and they said that she went missing in this year and she was this old, if you do the math with all her children, that means that she had her first kid in her 20s, and then she had back-to-back kids in her 40s? That doesn't even make sense. People are like, I don't even understand. And she wasn't even going to the hospital for the kids, for 7 of her kids. So she's in her 40s having like a peak in fertility out of nowhere and then giving birth in the shed? What's going on? So from 42 years old to about 50 years old, she gave birth to 7 kids? Like, none of this is making sense. Are we sure that this is May? Like, people were just getting more and more confused. And then internationally, it became a whole thing. So this got so much attention nationally, and it also happened to coincide with the Beijing Winter Olympics. A lot of the big publications internationally, I believe the New York Times was one of them, and they had posted articles that were titled, and I quote, "Who is the real China, Eileen Gu or the chained woman?" And a quote started circulating. When no one is paying attention to the chained woman, people could see her on the internet. But when the whole world is paying attention to her, we can no longer see her. A lot of allegations were that China was censoring and suppressing the story, especially after it went a little bit more international. With enough outrage, they kind of had to do something. Even though they were suppressing the story as much as they think they could have, I think, okay, personally, allegedly, they were suppressing the story, people were still outraged. They were not getting over it. So the province came out. So this is basically like it going from a county investigation to like a state investigation. The province came out and was like, hey, we're gonna investigate. Don't worry. We got this. Trust us. The public was a bit more optimistic that there would be results. And a week later, results came out. A 6,000-word detailed report on their investigation. So finally, the truth had come. The chained woman was May from Yunnan. The DNA showed that the woman was May and not Li Ying. And as for the picture that showed that Li Ying and the chained woman were similar in appearance, apparently it was edited before it was posted. So the viral picture that was circulating with the proportion lines and everything, that was kind of altered a bit. So it's a bit misleading. So what the hell happened to May? Her parents had gotten divorced. May moved to a new city with just her mom. And at the age of 17, everyone who knew her said that, you know, she was a very physically and mentally well young girl. She gets married at 17. That marriage lasted about 2 years. And when she divorces and joins her mom again, everyone was shocked. They're like, this is not the May that we knew. She has slurred speech. She has very different behavioral discrepancies. I mean, they believe that she was suffering from, if not one or many mental illnesses. So a year later, a neighbor named Sang took her to a neighboring village by request of May's mom. May is like, listen, May needs a husband. She's getting old. She's not a good catch. Take her to like one of the villages and see if someone will marry her, you know, please. And the neighbor, Sang, was not just a neighbor. They were a human trafficker.
Wow.
They had already done a prison stint for child trafficking, and that is how 21-year-old May became a trafficking victim. Sang sold May to a man in a local village for $620. And after about 4 months, May ran away, and somehow she wandered around 400 miles away from where the first purchase happened. And a couple took her in. This is a restaurant owner. And for a month, she was okay. She was eating, you know, she was being housed. She was helping out around the restaurant. And then they decided to sell her to migrant workers at a nearby construction site. Basically, she was sold again to construction workers. And these construction workers were like, let's take her to our hometown, which is the village that Mr. D lived in. And they were like, we don't really want her. We don't really need her. So let's sell her to someone in the village. They sold her to Mr. D's dad when he was still alive. So May had been sold like an animal 3 times. And finally, she was sold to Mr. D as the wife. Now, on the registration forms, she was forced to use a fake name so that nobody knew who she was because, you know, it's illegal to buy a wife. And from there, it just seemed like her life was pretty horrible. It wasn't as horrible as being chained up because it seems like she gave birth to her son in a hospital. And at that hospital, because of China's one-child policy, they put an IUD into her body, which means she can't get pregnant again. It's like those little copper things that they stick in your cervix. And about 10 years later, the IUD was ineffective. So we don't know when she started getting chained up. It could have been like a year after she gave birth to her son, 6 months. It could have been like 5 years. But we know that she was chained for a while. The IUD became ineffective and she was having this surge of reproductive hormones. And she was getting assaulted. And she gave birth 7 more times from the time that she was 34 years old to the time that she was 43 years old. The longest gap between kids was 14 months, which is insane. Before she was chained up, and if she had not been found by a TikToker, she had no idea how many more years or how much longer she would even survive being chained up. Once the report was released, the authorities confirmed that they did arrest Mr. D for abuse, as well as several other county leaders who did the investigation. They carried it out the way they did, as well as people who were willing to turn a blind eye on marriage registrations. Like, these people that worked in the marriage registration office, they knew what was going on. They didn't ask her for her ID because they knew that she was a purchased woman. This case drew a lot of attention to the fact that in these villages, just all around the world, not just in China, it is still not uncommon to buy wives, to buy human beings. And just in this province, since 1986, close to 50,000 women have been sold and bought by traffickers. And that's just the ones we know of. Even villagers who knew said that they weren't surprised. This isn't something new or wild. They said in villages, women are sold like pigs and dogs because they saved the village. Because what kind of woman wants to live in a village and have a bunch of kids so that they can work in the fields? No woman. But Mr. D will probably get off light because in the criminal law of China, it reads that the crime of buying abducted women and children shall be sentenced to a fixed term imprisonment of not more than 3 years.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Sometimes it's jail, sometimes it's public service. So...
What?
Yeah. In this like province area. So
I mean, this is basically kidnapping.
Yeah.
And assault, sexual, essay.
It's kind of a loophole from what I read, and tell me if my research is incorrect on this one because it was getting really complex because it's like the code of law and it's constantly changing, and also translation. I did have professional translators help me on this one, but kidnapping a woman, you get a higher sentence. But for some reason, when you buy a kidnapped woman, like it's like a different sentence. So when you're the kidnapper, you get a different sentence. I feel
What's worse?
That's right? What I'm saying, but it's like it's kind of a weird, like a really weird thing. I don't know why. A lot of people in China are saying this is the case that really showed the true colors, that a woman is still considered less than a panda, and even 2 parrots. And to make things worse, some netizens even took to the internet to blame the chained woman. They said, now that the case is clear, did the public get what they want? just because of your so-called morality and wokeness. The family is torn apart, the children don't have a mother, and the man doesn't have a wife, and the children don't have a father. And you know what? The most pitiful person is the chained girl. If one of her 8 kids had been successful, she would have been well taken care of for the rest of her life. But that hope, it's all gone now. Insinuating that since she's been freed, she has no hope that one of her kids will succeed and support her later on.
I can't believe this.
Yeah, so if that's true, okay, let's just chain everyone back up. Another person wrote, besides, no matter how righteous the government is, family ties are not as important anymore these days. There's already no love from the mother, and now the father's gone. What will the children feel? Probably not good. To that, someone responded, finally, someone with brain cells. They wrote, the young children are innocent, but the kidnapped mother is more innocent. To sympathize with her rapist is to stab the chained mother. And that is the story of the TikToker who chained a woman up and almost got away with it.
Wow, that is so dark.
I don't even know how to feel about this case or how to dissect this case because there's so many different weird levels to this. And I think definitely just the fact that it was happening during the Beijing Winter Olympics, it just adds such a even more depressing, anytime when there's a crime happening, it feels like there's 10 worlds going on. How can all these things happen in the same world? Just doesn't make sense. I'm gonna play you the video of this woman's last words, and I don't even speak Chinese, but for some reason, it just got to me. My fiance showed me this. I had no idea what crime she committed. I had no idea why she was about to die, but just watch.
判处被告人郭爽死刑，听清了没有？对判决结果有什么意见没有？没有。临刑前你有什么遗言和进谏需要我们向你的亲属代为转达的？希望我爸妈好好的。其他有没有了？押赴刑场，交付执行。
你刚才问什么？问王子健了吗？为什么第一反应要问他的结果？不知道。就像你昨天说的，希望他能留下来。你如愿了，他留下来了。
真的。
为什么会那么高兴？他判了缓刑。有什么跟爸妈说的？
妈妈，对不起，希望你们为了自己好好活着。
So this clip goes viral, and just to give you some context, this woman right here is a hospital worker that's about to be executed, and she was asked if she had any last words, and she just responds really emotionlessly, like she's no longer even here on the planet, like she's accepted her fate. She just says, I hope my parents are doing well, like I feel remorse for my parents, I feel sorry to them. And that was it. It's the most standard textbook type of response. But the interviewer who worked for the news station decided to push on, to press on. So she brings up this woman's boyfriend, the one that was about to be executed for murder because they killed somebody together. And the interviewer says, I know I probably shouldn't tell you this, but just, because you're going to die anyway. Your boyfriend is no longer being executed. His sentence was commuted to life in prison. And you just see this woman's face. She starts crying, tears of joy, of happiness. She's nodding and crying, and it's oddly emotional and oddly moving. She said, at least one of us is going to live, and I'm not holding him back anymore. 30 minutes later, she was executed. And this huge clip almost became a morality debate for years to come. Is this woman evil? Is she not evil? Did she deserve this? I mean, it seems like she has a soul. She's so excited that her boyfriend's gonna live. Is her boyfriend evil? Did he manipulate her? Did she manipulate him? So let's answer all those freaking questions because it gets wild. It all started at the hospital. The freaking hospital. So Dr. Feng is a big name in the hospital. I mean, his name wasn't on the building or anything like that, but he ran the hospital technically. He was the director of the hospital personnel department. He was very well compensated for his position, and he was able to negotiate a ton of benefits when he took this job. So he's walking around shoulders tall like he owns the goddamn place. I mean, he is he is an accomplished guy. I will give him that. He grew up in China, graduates college, and he's like, I'm going to go to the United States. He goes, he starts going through the ranks, and he eventually ends up at Columbia University to do research, later goes to Harvard University to study molecular biology. What does that even mean? Then he gets married to an ophthalmologist, right? And then the two of them just have kids. Listen, they're like winning the American dream. And then he gets a call from his old college in China. And they're like, we want you back. We want to give you a prestigious directorial position. Like, we miss you. We heard you've been doing great things in the United States. Come back. So he couldn't say no. His wife is confused, like, what do you mean you can't say no? Our kids want to be here. Our kids are practically American, you know, their whole lives are here. My practice is here. Do you not care that I'm a fucking ophthalmologist? Like, hello? Like, what do you mean you're not going to say no? And he ends up going. He's like, yeah, whatever. I'm taking the kids. I'm sure you'll find your way back to China too because you just like need us so much. And the wife was like, absolutely not. Needless to say, it resulted in a pretty messy divorce, obviously. So Dr. Fang goes back to China, gets into his little workplace, and he loves it. I mean, immediately, everybody respects him. They all praise him with these powerful words like, Dr. Fang, you were born to be a leader. I don't know. Nowadays, after all those cult stories, I'm like, anytime I hear someone was born to be a leader, I'm like, you gotta run the other way. You gotta go as far away from that person as possible because I don't think that's a good thing anymore. They're like, Dr. Fang, you are someone I would blindly follow. You're just so smart. I mean, he was intelligent. He was, competent. He was respectable. He was a natural leader, so they say. It was normal to see nurses and other doctors just excitedly greeting Dr. Fang in the hallways. But there was always like this one employee that was a bit more lively, a bit more cheerful than the rest. She looked like she freaking loved her job, which is rare. And well, being head of the personnel department, he was like, I like that. I like that energy. I wish everybody had that energy. That's how I pump up the vibes in this hospital. So when his 40th birthday came around, Dr. Fang's like, I'm gonna go out with all my coworkers and we're gonna get drunk. He's like, hey, that random girl that always greeted me so excitedly, looks so happy to be at work, what's her name? Let's freaking invite her to the party. So her name was
Guo Shuang.
Guo Shuang. I'm gonna call her SG because, listen, I'm gonna trigger this guy with my pronunciations the whole time. So SG was 22 years old. She's just trying the best that she could. I mean, who isn't at 22? Like, who's just living the best life? I mean, that's what she was doing. It's 2005. She graduates from college. She studied medicine, but she didn't go to med school. She studied nursing, but she didn't go to nursing school. So she was kind of stuck in the middle. Like, I can't go be a nurse. I can't really have these titled jobs, but I want to work in the hospital. So she gets an opening at this very hospital, and her parents are retired at this point. She's feeling the pressure. She's like, I gotta provide for them. So they're getting old. She's down to take anything at this point. She sees this position, and it's kind of like a position where you're just administration, but not even really. You're an assistant to administration. You're doing some paperwork here and there, but you're fetching coffees. You're cleaning up messes, literal messes. It wasn't prestigious. It wasn't in the field that she wanted, but at least it was in a hospital. So she was a part-time worker, a temporary worker, which meant the pay was even less. She had no benefits, no control over her schedule. She didn't even know if she was going to even work 20 hours that week. She could have just been cut from the schedule. But SG was the type that felt like, if I work hard, they're going to make me full-time. So she puts up with all the horrible treatment, all the being the end of the group, having to fetch people's coffees, and every single day she saw any superiors in the hallways, she would just be so excited, like, hello, Mr. Dr. Fang, like, happy to be at work. So when Dr. Fang invites her to his 40th birthday party, I mean, she's freaking over the moon. This meant her hard work is finally paying off. She's going to go make this amazing impression on her superiors, and hopefully she would get that full-time position, right? She didn't know that Dr. Fang wasn't thinking about a full-time position, but rather a position for being his girlfriend. So during his birthday party, he just kept pushing more and more drinks on SJ. And I feel like it's similar to Korean culture. SJ found it really hard to turn down his superior's drinks when he kept insisting that she take another shot and another shot. And she's with her work bosses. They're all doctors. She felt safe. I mean, think about it. Even if she's drunk and she tripped and fell, they knew what to do, right? They could clean her up. If she had alcohol poisoning, they knew what to do. I mean, can you think of a place that you would feel more safe drinking than in a room full of doctors? But SG was still worried when she felt her vision started to blur and she's like walking and tripping over the stools and over the table ledges. She's like, okay, keep calm. Like, it's okay. I gotta put a good impression. I gotta walk straight. But why did she feel so drowsy? So Dr. Feng couldn't take it anymore. He laughs and he gets up and he's like, all right, party's over, I guess. You guys have fun on me. I'm going to take the rookie SG home. Guess she's not used to the way that we party as doctors, am I right? So everyone's waving. They're not thinking anything of it. I mean, this is a nice guy. Yeah, have fun. Like, SG's in good hands. SG thought so too. She just remembered being in his car, and then the next thing she remembered was waking up in his bed. And immediately she was crying. Immediately. There was no like, oh my God, what happened? She knew what happened. Come on. So instead of driving SG home, Dr. Feng thought, why not bring her to my house? She's already losing consciousness. It'll be so easy to rape her. And in the morning, I can just tell her that she came on to me. Like, he knew what he was doing was bad, but whatever. That's how the world worked. That's what he's thinking to himself. Besides, SG would probably be so embarrassed that she slept with her boss that she would scurry out of his apartment. He had no idea that SG would wake up bawling her eyes out. That was not according to the plan. I mean, 23-year-old SG is laying in that bed. Her life just feels like it's been shattered to glass. Her hope in the world was gone. Not only is she traumatized, but this is like the worst way to be traumatized. She's thinking, if I can't even trust a respectable man, my boss, who on this planet can I trust? I mean, she just had this image of Dr. Feng as a mentor, a leader, someone who looked out for his subordinates, but then that just shattered like glass. It's like everyone in the world is so full of deception and nobody is good and you can't trust any. She was having like a quarter-life crisis. She was genuinely having a moment of like, what the fuck? She thought rapists were people that looked really gross and they come up to you and they harass you and catcall you and they like spike your drink. She never thought it would be her respectable boss who studied at Columbia and Harvard and everybody respected him. Dr. Feng was shocked too. Not at himself for being a disgusting, deplorable human being, but I guess he really didn't think that SG would have such a strong reaction to the assault. He thought that she would just blame herself and push it under the rug, which honestly is so sick when you think about it. So to try and diffuse the situation, Dr. Feng offers SG a compromise. He's like, she's too emotional. She is unpredictable. I don't know if she's going to go tell the cops. I don't know if she's going to go tell my bosses. So to keep her quiet, he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that this happened to you. You know, violence against women is never okay. I take it very seriously. But how about I help you out? I can try to make sure that you're offered full-time the minute a position opens up. SG left Dr. Feng's apartment and she didn't agree. She didn't say anything. She just like literally left in tears. But when she gets home, you know, she's thinking about it. And this is the part that people really come at SG for. They say she must have not hated the assault if she went back for more. But SG, from that point, decided to sleep with Dr. Feng now. Psychologists say that there's like a ton of reasons that victims will actually choose to sleep with their assaulters after their trauma. One of the main ones being, if I choose it this time, then it feels like the last time it happened, the actual assault, was an assault, right? Like, it makes me feel like I'm regaining the power. And if I chose it this time, that means I didn't actually experience this intense, unconsensual thing last time, right? It's not that bad. It's like a way for your brain to protect yourself. Things like assault are so nuanced, I feel like we're just touching the surface. We have stories where victims fight the whole way through and immediately go to the police after. But in most cases, I think it's because so many people know their assaulter or their lives are connected with the rapist that it just becomes so nuanced and complicated. If it's a boss that could jeopardize your career, if it's a schoolmate that could ruin your reputation and make you a social outcast, if it's a family member that can uproot the entire family ecosystem, I mean, it's too complex, right? So people seem to do things that almost seem unfathomable to other people, but all I'm saying is nobody really knows what they would do in that situation unless they've been in that situation. So SG starts an intimate relationship with Dr. Feng. And I think there was another reason for it too, other than her trying to convince herself that she had the power here. Psychologists agree that this is very normal for victims who are assaulted by people who have power over them. So Dr. Feng had offered SG a full-time position at work. And at first she was disgusted and traumatized. But maybe when she got home, she reasoned with herself, like, listen, this terrible, horrible thing has happened to you, but it's in the past. Like, you can't even change it. What can you do? There's no way to go back and rewrite history. You can't go to the cops. They're not going to believe you. You can't go to your boss. He's your boss. You know, it's like his word against yours. This is rape culture. So yeah, you've been assaulted, humiliated, and now you're unemployed if you do something. Or maybe you get something out of it. maybe you can win something, right? Take advantage of the situation. If you sleep with him, maybe he will feel forced to give you a full-time position.
Yeah, it's like your brain trying to survive, basically.
Yeah, and like try to like reason, okay, well, if I get something out of it, then it's fine. But from the outside, what a lot of people saw was, oh, this is a girl who's like sleeping her way to the top, and she's mad that people found out about it or that it stopped working. But before then, SG was promoted to a full-time position. It's so frustrating. So people were really coming at her for the fact that she did get promoted to a full-time position. Now, Dr. Fang being the complete asshole that he is, I don't even know what to say. Like, he's a freaking dickwad, okay? He didn't even give her the full benefits. He was like, oh, since you're transferring like to part-time to full-time, I'm just gonna like give you full-time. But usually all the full-time people that were hired, they got housing benefits, they got an allotment for housing, they got all of these things, they got amazing different health cares. She got nothing. She just got a full-time position. And she was just grateful to have 40 hours a week where she was guaranteed to get paid as long as she did her job well. So now, with this full-time status, SG is hopefully hoping that she can transfer to a different hospital soon, one that's connected to this one. She wanted to see what Dr. Fang could do about it. This would be the least that he could do after traumatizing her for the rest of her life, right? She just wanted a full-time job and to transfer so that she didn't have to be around him anymore. But Dr. Fang was getting annoyed. She was asking for too much, and essentially, he slammed the door shut in her face. So as she tries to move on, she doesn't have to see him anymore because he's upset with her for demanding too much. You know, they would just nod at each other awkwardly in the hallways, and that was about it. So all the while this is happening, he just blew it out. So all the while this is happening, she goes out with her cousin one night to blow out some steam, and they run into Zizhan Wang Zizhang, and we're gonna call him Z. So they know each other's cousins. Anyway, he's like a nice guy. He's freaking 18 years old, and SG at this point is 25 or something, or 23. So again, a little bit, he's very young. That's all I have to say. But it's fine. He's of age. They start dating, and SG just felt like Z was mature. He was someone that liked to take care of others and take care of her, and he was listening to her. She felt secure enough that a month after dating, she just told him everything. This is what happened at work. This is what Dr. Fang did to me. And then 2 weeks later, she brings him a pregnancy test. It was positive. She knew it wasn't Z's. The only person that it could be possibly was Dr. Fang's. She goes to Dr. Fang and she tells him, and without even a moment's thought about it, about if she wanted it or like how terminating a pregnancy can be so traumatic for patients, nothing. She had no power over her body. He dragged her to the hospital and forced her to get an abortion right then and there. And this was when all hell broke loose. SG was a freaking mess. Like, I think all of that trauma was behind this like powerful wall, and she was trying to hold on tight. And then eventually this is the straw that broke the camel's back. So she's telling Z about everything that's going on, and like he's listening intently. You could see his ears are turning red. Like, he's angry. I mean, who wouldn't be? Like, what kind of boyfriend wouldn't be? He felt genuine, pure hatred for the first time in his life. That's how he describes it. Like, genuine hatred. And that is how the whole tragic story began. Both of them say that it was they that brought up the whole idea of killing Dr. Fang. SG said, it was me. I hated Dr. Fang. I wanted to get, revenge. I wanted to ruin him, or at least make sure that he could never assault someone again. If you know what I mean, I wanted to castrate him. Does that make sense? I told Z what I thought about it, and he asked if this was the only way that I could move on and to heal and to be a whole person again. And I said, yeah, that's the only way. And I want you to help me. She claims that Z thought about it for a while, and finally he agreed, and they started planning. Meanwhile, Z said, we both felt like Dr. Fang needed to die in order to let this darkness get out of SG's mind. I mean, she needed this. She wanted to kill him. So together we started planning. So even now it feels like Z is kind of covering for her. Now, I mean, regardless of who started the planning, it was in motion and there was no stopping it. 23-year-old SG and 18-year-old Z went out together to buy a large hammer and some surgical blades. They genuinely wanted to castrate this guy. They didn't want to kill him. They just wanted to take his little thing off so that he could never hurt another woman again. September 30th, 2006, at 4 p.m. after work, SG tells Dr. Fang that she needs to show him something, and it's very important that she had to drive him there and show him it. I don't think that Dr. Fang wanted to go, but I think that he was curious because what if he didn't go, she would go to the police? What if she was unstable? What if she was showing him like a shrine? What if she was showing him, evidence that she had of the assault? So he hopped into her car and he's like, who's the guy in the back? Oh, don't worry about him. That's my little brother. Okay, that's weird. And the three silently head off in the car that SG is driving with Dr. Fang in the passenger seat and Z in the back just sitting quietly. He's not even talking. But then, slowly, as they're getting out of the city and you see less buildings, less people walking around, less cars on the road, and you see wooded areas and fields and nobody for miles, Dr. Fang starts to get nervous. Where are we going? And Z said he talked first. He said, Dr. Fang, I know what you did, and we want to make something clear to you. We're giving you a chance right now that you're going to make SG a formal employee with full benefits within 3 business days and let her transfer to another hospital with housing accommodations and everything. And if you do that within the next 3 business days, we're not going to hurt you. So yeah, consider this a threat. I can't do that. Even if I genuinely wanted to, I don't have the authority to do something like that. Okay, then I guess it's too late. And in the backseat, Z takes out the surgical blade and slices Dr. Fang's neck from behind. And Dr. Fang puts his hand to cover his neck. It's now literally splurting with blood. They said that the blood was getting on the windshield all over the dash. I don't know what he cut, but it was a vein. And Z used this opportunity to grab his wrist, Dr. Fang's wrist, and slash it. And Dr. Fang starts screaming, oh my God, you slashed my aorta. I need to stop the bleeding quick. And he successfully is like reaching for everything. He's like trying to hold onto his wrist and his neck. He opens the door, and in this chaos, he jumps out of the car into the field nearby. So Dr. Fang is literally squirting blood, just running through this field now. He tries to get a few cars to stop and help him, but nobody did. They're like, this feels like straight out of a horror movie. Z runs out of the car, chases him down, and uses the hammer to beat up Dr. Fang's head, like literally bashing his head in. And when he was confident that Dr. Fang was not going to be able to get up and get help or survive any of this, he walked back to SG's car, where she was waiting, and they just left. They just drove off with Dr. Fang in the field to die. They said that they drove in silence, and the smell of the blood was making both of them so nauseous. It was like that rusty smell, almost metallic. They drove to an abandoned roadside, lit the bloody car, literally the bloody car on fire, and just walked off. They had no plans, no thoughts, just each other, and homicidal vibes, honestly. They walked back to the city. They were arrested within a few days. I mean, a lot of the hospital staff knew that SG and Dr. Fang were having an affair, so it was pretty easy to consider them suspects and connect the dots. Neither of them tried to hide anything. They just immediately confessed. And on August 17th, 2007, both of them were sentenced to death. So it seems like the story is over, right? I mean, kind of. But the internet picked up this case and ran with it. I mean, there was kind of this clear divide in the middle. Half of the people were saying things like, evidence? What evidence? I didn't see anything. All I see is one less rapist gone in this world. Who's crying about that? I'm not crying, are you? Killing for love after someone raped your partner is hardly a crime to be executed for. They said they should execute rapists with this level of passion. Some people said, and these are all quotes and translated, the one who should die is dead. It's the rapist. Why should we lose more people in this world? If he hadn't raped her, she wouldn't have lost her mind and killed him. I don't see the problem here. Listen, the killers were too young, too traumatized to know better. But guess who wasn't too young and too traumatized? The doctor who raped her. Some people were kind of in the middle, like, she did commit a crime. They do need to get punished. They do need to get consequences. But considering the fact that she was raped by this man, I don't think the death penalty, it's a bit too harsh. And then you had the other side of people who were very much victim blaming, seeing things like, well, she kept sleeping with him, then is she truly traumatized for being raped? Maybe she wasn't even raped. Maybe she was just upset that people found out that she was sleeping for a full-time position. I think that she did this for greed. She just wanted to get promoted and promoted without putting in the work, and then when he stopped promoting her and sending her everywhere she wanted, she killed him. The young boy was dragged into all of this by the Black Widow. She's pathetic, hateful, manipulative. I mean, she tried to sleep her way to the top and it backfired, so she gets her boyfriend and ruins this guy's life by convincing him to kill. Okay, side note, that comment is so telling because nowhere in that sentence is there any responsibility put on the men in this case, the 18-year-old that physically killed someone, nor the 40-year-old that raped, abused his power, and then threatened a woman. Like, none of that at all. Like how... So they kept going. I mean, how does a 23-year-old find a teenager attractive? It means that she was looking for someone young and impressionable that she could control. She was looking for someone to help her kill. She was using her sex appeal to get to this 18-year-old. She wasn't satisfied until Dr. Fang was dead. Besides, there's no proof of the rape anyway. I mean, it caused up such a stir that Z's appeal was taken up by the Supreme Court, and in the last minute before both of them were scheduled for their death sentences, Z's death sentence was commuted to life in prison. And that was the moment that we saw earlier. So those crying of tears of joy and saying, at least I don't have to drag him down anymore. I'm so happy he gets to live. She was just so happy at the end.
但是他让我转告你，他说他到现在都真心喜欢你。那个他还说，其实你不是你欠他的。他说，其实他在这个过程当中，他完全可以自己来选择去做还是不去做，但那是他自己的选择。说不怪你，只怪他太无知，只怪你们两个对法律太无知了。
如果可以的话，他如果愿意的话，请他替我找我爸爸。
I mean, to me, when I saw that, I've just personally never saw someone's last words, you know, right before an execution.
Yes, I've never seen a state criminal execution's last words be that emotionally charged. Usually you have the serial killers who are sick and twisted till the end that are like, I ain't got nothing to say, but I love my mom. Or you have the ones that are like, I feel bad for what I did. I found God, love Jesus, bye.
And the fact that her, just her emotional switch went from cold, no emotion to all of a sudden overflowing of emotion. Like a lot of people, I think they were also saying like the love they have, is it because she really, really loves him? Some people say that the feeling is that maybe she did convince him to kill. So now she feels like at least I don't have to. Does that make sense? Like I'm the only one that have to, you know,
bear the death penalty
for this.
It's just so sad. I mean, okay, do I think that what they did was wrong and twisted? Yeah, I do. Would it have been better if they castrated Dr. Fang? Probably, yeah, because he's dead now and he has kids and it's just all around don't kill people. But I think it's also telling that they're so young and they truly felt like they had no other way. Like, the fact that she was traumatized and raped and then they feel like they have no other way and they're backed into a corner and the only way to escape this trauma is to kill him, that says a lot about society and the justice system. Because if she had an outlet to just punish him, he gets fired from his job, he is no longer her boss, she gets some sort of support, like, I think she would have been fine.
Yeah, I saw some comment also said that if this case happened today, like 2022, she probably wouldn't have to been
the death penalty.
Yeah.
She probably would have gotten life in prison.
Probably, but it's probably not going to get, you know, executed, so.
And that is the story of what happened to just the most intense last words I have ever heard. What do you guys think of it? Do you feel like she has some sort of remorse in her? Do you feel like she has a soul? I mean, she was so emotional about her boyfriend not being executed. Do you think it was real love? Do you think it was a trauma bond? Do you think she manipulated him and then felt remorse afterwards? I don't know. Let me know in the comments.